Chapter 136, Descent of the King, 1. The Yen family sat there like how a king would. Every action or word from them was watched closely by the surrounding people. No one could stop them. And they wouldn't be stopped. Just like the return of the king. The return of the true ruler. Don't push it. Seeing Yen Zhongyuan approaching him, his body was shivering slightly and fear started creeping on him. Behind him, the other Duan family members' faces were as white as sheets as they stood there helplessly. What do you mean by pushing it? This is just like any other ordinary sparring. My nephew is a martial artist level 9 expert and so is Hu Fei. We are both at martial artist level 8. Yen Zhongyuan looked at old Duan tauntingly before turning to old Shui. Oh right, where's that brat, Wang Xian? Why isn't he here? Old Shui's heart sank and had a ghastly expression. He knew that his close relationship with Wang Xian on that day had completely angered the Yen family. I gave him an invitation letter but it seems like he's not here today. Yen Feng looked around with derision. His medical skills are so great and he has the capital to be proud. I still thought he would appear. It seems like he has disappointed me. He shook his head gradually and looked a little disappointed. However, I told him that if he wasn't here, he'd better watch out for his family and friends. Yen Feng stared at old Shui and smirked. Those who offend our Yen family will definitely deeply regret their actions. Come, let's spar. Yen Zhongyuan looked to old Xian and said plainly. Yen Feng waved his hand to signal for a martial artist level 7 expert from Yen family to step out. He then looked towards old Shui in contempt. Alright. Who's afraid of you? Come. Old Duan's face turned solemn. He clenched his fist tightly and walked to the middle of the field. Old Shui was equally solemn as he faced that expert from the Yen family. The crowd held their breath and looked at old Duan and old Shui with pity. They were currently the third and fourth strongest families in Rivertown. And were extremely strong existences in the entire Rivertown. However, in the face of the Yen family, they couldn't do anything but be manipulated by them. They could already foresee the Duan family and Shui family being erased from Rivertown in the near future. Come. Yen Zhongyuan laughed heartily before launching his attack. This was originally a training field and there was ample space. Cripple him. Tell Wang Xian that this is just the beginning. If he dares to be a coward, I'll let him experience a life worse than death. Yen Feng said to the martial artist from the Yen family. Yes, young master. That middle-aged man nodded his head and stared harshly at old Shui. Wang Xian. Tisk. Contempt filled the eyes of Yen Feng. As one that was favored by the gods, he was spotted by an expert from the sacred seas of swords and had trained under him since he was young. When he was 18 years old, he was brought to the Sacred Seas Island by his master. He had always been under the dazzling limelight when growing up. Soon, the Yen family would become the king of the entire Rivertown. At that time, he would be the crown prince of Rivertown. No one would dare to go against his words. So what if that brat has some medical skills? Crushing him would be as simple as crushing an ant. Yen Feng smirked and stared at old Shui. He looked to the surrounding crowd and spread his domineering aura towards them. On the training field, Yen Zhongyuan was engaged in an intense fight with old Duan. Old Shui and the middle-aged man were also fighting with all they had. Nonetheless, it was clear that old Duan and old Shui were on the losing end. Since the Yen family had chosen them for the battles, they would definitely be confident about the outcome. It's over. Old Shui and old Duan are probably going to be defeated soon. Yen Zhongyuan and the other martial artist are ruthless with each strike. The third and fourth strongest families are going to be crushed so easily. That's horrifying. The crowd looked attentively at the battle of these four people and discussed softly. Shui Jing, his father and the members of the Duan family were all watching anxiously. Their faces were as white as sheets and their eyes were filled with despair. Arg! Arg! A piercing scream sounded and the crowd felt as if their hearts skipped a beat. Yan Zhongyuan palms struck ruthlessly on the chest of old Duan, causing it to sink in directly. It was an extremely brutal scene. As for old Shui, his four limbs were crippled and he lay on the floor motionless. Even his elixir field had been crushed. A complete tragedy. As the two old men fell, it also represented the complete destruction of the Shui family and Duan family. Shui Jing and his father's eyes were bloodshot and they stared at the members of the Yan family with deep hatred. The members of the Duan family were shivering in anger and clenching their fists tightly. However, they didn't dare to retaliate. Undermatch. Who still dares to go against our Yan family? At this moment, seeing that old Duan and old Shui were lying on the floor, Yan Gukong stood up slowly and shouted. He lifted the dragon head walking stick in his hand slowly. Who else? It was another angry roar. This roar was full of might, dominance, and the aura of an expert. When his dragon head walking stick landed on the ground, a low and dull sound propagated together with an invisible airwave towards the crowd. Instantly, everyone felt a faint sense of pressure. Half step. Inborn. The leader of the Ren family, who was seated in the front, instantly opened his eyes widely. His face was filled with horror. This aura was definitely from someone who was at the half-step to inborn realm. He had not expected Yan Gukong of the Yan family to make this step and achieve the realm of half-step to inborn. Half-step to inborn. Oh my gosh! He's at the half-step to inborn realm. Old Yan is a half-step to inborn expert. I'll surrender. I'll surrender. The surrounding martial artists were all shocked. We are willing to defer to the Yan family. We are willing to follow the commands of the Yan family from here onwards. The remaining martial artists, who had not made a stand previously, immediately bowed down. A disciple of sacred seas of swords and a half-step to inborn expert. What a horrifying family. They might very well become a first-class family in the future. The martial artists bowed down to show their will to submit. On the training field, old Shui looked at the horrifying Yan family in despair. Even if Wang Xian was here right now, there would be no other way out. It's over. Follow our Yan family and you will bask in glory in the near future. Yan Gukong looked at the crowd and laughed heartily. He then added 4 words, the king has returned. Let's give up. The leader of the Ren family felt helpless. He knew that the Yan family couldn't be stopped and they couldn't oppose the Yan family. What was left for them would be only to surrender. Although he was unwilling, there was no other option for him. Just as he was about to lower his body, a voice sounded suddenly. The invitation letter stated that the banquet would start at 8 p.m. It's 8 p.m. right now. It seems like someone has been impatient. It was unexpected and the surrounding crowd was shocked. They turned around and looked at the entrance. A juvenile was walking towards them with a faint smile. There was a group of people following behind this juvenile and they had a unique disposition around them. All of them had completely sealed their auras. One could not sense a shred of internal energy from them. It was as though they were ordinary people. Everyone was shocked to see this group of people. Within the Ren family crowd, Ren Jian saw a familiar figure. Looking at the old man beside the figure, his eyes constricted. He's here. Chapter 137, Descent of the King, 2. Within the group of 53 people, a young man was walking in the center with an elderly man following beside him. The young man put on a smile and swept his gaze across everyone in front of him casually. But when he saw the old man who was lying on the ground, his smile slowly disappeared. The banquet in the training field was plunged into silence as they watched the incoming group of people. Who are you? How dare you make a scene in the Yan family's mountain villa? A martial artist from Rivertown shouted at the top of his lungs. He wanted to please the Yan family. A bunch of small fries. How dare you even mess with the Yan family? The leader of the Bai family also did the same thing. The ones who just arrived were Wang Xian and his dragon sect. He swept his cold gaze across everyone and strolled to old Shui. I didn't think you'd dare to come. I thought you were a coward. When Yan Feng saw Wang Xian bring his men over, he gave a faint smile after looking at them. Yan Feng did not take those people to heart. In fact, he felt that this was getting interesting. It's only 8 o'clock now. I thought I was punctual, but I didn't expect the dinner to have been brought forward. You're not sticking to the time. Wang Xian threw an impassive look at Yan Feng, the so-called Mr. Feng in school, before he came to old Shui and squatted beside him. Wang Xian, you're here. Be careful. The Yan family, they are just too strong, said old Shui with an ashen-looking face, in despair as he looked at Wang Xian. Don't worry, old Shui. Leave this to me. Wang Xian placed his palm on old Shui and used his dragon energy to treat him. The 4 limbs of old Shui had been crippled, and his elixir field was destroyed. His life as a martial artist was completely ruined. But to Wang Xian, this was nothing. An immense dragon energy repaired all his injuries. Old Shui recovered speedily, and his expression was slightly different when he stared blankly at Wang Xian. Wang Xian smiled at him and lifted him up from the floor slowly. Old Shui was injured because of him. However, he was not too late. He could still treat the injuries, and for those who hurt his friends, he could. Well, what powerful medical skills you have. No wonder the Sacred Followers Guild was defeated by you. Yan Feng's eyes brightened up when he saw old Shui stand up suddenly. I'll give you a chance to atone for your mistake. Submit to the Yan family, and I can forgive your rude and imprudent behavior. I can also let your friends off. As he spoke, he was looking down his nose at Wang Xian, giving off immense confidence from within. Yan Feng stared at him as though he was looking at his prey. As the one favored by the gods, he had never regarded Wang Xian as his match. Wang Xian wore a smiling face and looked over. Yan Feng was overconfident such that he was arrogant. Wang Xian ignored Yan Feng. Old Shui, who hurt you? I sparred with a martial artist from the Yan family, and I was crippled by him. Old Shui had a bitter look on his face. After all, it was his fault for being poor enough with his skills to get eliminated by a martial artist of the same level. Sparring? Wang Xian looked at the Yan family. Since all of you like sparring, then spar with my people. Show me what the Yan family has got as the return of the king. Lad. I guess you want it the hard way. I've given you a chance. If you make me angry, you won't be able to bear the consequences. Yan Feng looked at Wang Xian, who disregarded him with a ferocious look. Lad, with just these people of yours, we could destroy them without the Yan family. Old Yan, we'll cripple these arrogant fellows on your order. One by one, the martial artists and the families sought permission from Old Yan as they raised their cold voices at Wang Xian. Yan Gukong made a gesture, and all the martial artists went silent immediately. None of them dared to utter a word. You are the fellow who offended our distinguished guest from the Sacred Followers Guild, disregarding the Yan family, aren't you? Yan Gukong glared at Wang Xian, questioning him. Your people injured my friend, right? Wang Xian did not answer him. He also stared at Yan Gukong and questioned him back. This is what happens when you go against the Yan family. Yan Gukong said without any emotions. Very well. Since you like it this way, I'll do it your way. Wang Xian nodded impassively. He swept his gazes around and bellowed in a cold voice, who was the one who injured my friend? Step out now. It's me, brat. I'll cripple him every time after you heal him. This is the consequence of offending the Yan family. The middle-aged man who fought with old Shui spoke impassively to Wang Xian as he looked at old Shui scornfully. Well then, let's spar. Wang Xian beckoned, and a Dragonian walked out in wide steps. Level 7 martial artist, Mo Shir-san. The Dragonian stared at that middle-aged man. Challenging the Yan family? That's interesting. Upon seeing Wang Xian sending his people to fight with the Yan family, Yan Gukong laughed out. If so, it's only polite to accept the challenge. Let's play with them. The middle-aged man let out a cold laugh. He bowed to Yen Gukong before he stared at Imo-Shir-san with his chin up. I'll destroy you. Given Yen Beiyun and Old Shui's combat skills, Yen Beiyun is at his peak as a level 7 martial artist. He could be even a level 8 martial artist. The art that he practiced was already formidable. Among the martial artists at level 7, and he's almost invincible. Yet this juvenile actually challenged him. He's obviously courting his own death. Who's that young guy who dares to provoke the Yen family? He even shows himself at this dinner today. He's asking for it. This fellow wasn't here just now, so he didn't witness how formidable the Yen family is. Now, he seems like a clown, copying the Yen family by asking for a spar. Hee hee, what a joke. Everyone stared at Wang Xian with disdainful looks. The less wit, the more courage. If he dared to provoke the mighty one, his outcome would be dreadful. Wang Xian listened to the surrounding discussion. Seeing the arrogant expression on the middle-aged man's face, Wang Xian revealed a playful look. Boom! Just when everyone was waiting for Imo-Shir-san to be abused by Yen Beiyun, Imo-Shir-san moved. A faint black aura was exuded from his body as he charged rapidly at the middle-aged man like some savage beast. Some capability he has. The middle-aged man squinted his eyes. He curled his fingers into a fist tightly and darted out. Trash! Boom! A faint voice sounded from the training ground, followed by a low groan. The middle-aged man from the Yen family flew out at a terrifying speed. His sunken chest could be seen in the air. Bam! The middle-aged man from the Yen family landed on the table heavily and lay there without moving. How is this possible? Everyone was taken aback. That middle-aged man was at the peak of level 7. But he was instantly killed by someone of the same level. This was unbelievable. Brat, how dare you lie to us? Damn you! Seeing his clan mate being killed in a split second, Yen Zhongyuan was furious. He would never believe that Imo-Shir-san was only a level 7 martial artist. At his level, he could never achieve an instant kill. Chapter 138, Descent of the King, 3. Die! Twisting his body, Yen Zhongyuan lifted a sword and slashed towards Imo-Shir-san rapidly. How dare you send a level 8 martial artist expert to battle a level 7 martial artist expert from the Yen family? That's despicable. TSK. Just a brat courting death. This time, the Yen family will definitely not let them off. The crowd looked on coldly as Yen Zhongyuan launched his attacks. Although it was shocking that Imo-Shir-san had defeated the middle-aged man from the Yen family in an instant, the crowd saw Wang Xian's action of hiding Imo-Shir-san's true strength as the reason for his imminent downfall. Despite seeing Yen Zhongyuan making his moves, Wang Xian did not say a word. Instead, he simply smiled and looked on. Those who dare to offend our king shall all die today. Imo-Shir-san looked at Yen Zhongyuan. Around him, devilish flames were rising. His fingers turned into a claw as he swung his arm. One could vaguely see faint scales on the hands of Imo-Shir-san. Dragon scales. Courting death. Yen Zhongyuan manipulated the long sword in his hand. To his astonishment, he saw Imo-Shir-san intending to take the attack directly with his bare hand. Murderous intent filled his face as he slashed down ruthlessly. Bam! However, what happened sent chills down Yen Zhongyuan's spine. Imo-Shir-san had grabbed onto the long sword directly with his hand. Moreover, cracks were starting to appear on his long sword. Roar! Imo-Shir-san let out a low growl as he attacked heavily with his right hand. Yen Zhongyuan was shocked by the development and immediately raised his arm to defend against the attack. Crack crack! To his astonishment, he heard the bones of his arms cracking. Bam bam bam! Imo-Shir-san clenched his claws and dealt 5 consecutive punches to Yen Zhongyuan's forelimbs and elixir field. In less than 10 moves, Yen Zhongyuan was down on the ground. Martial artist level 9, the crowd exclaimed, looking on in disbelief. He is definitely a martial artist level 9 expert. Otherwise, he wouldn't have defeated Yan Zhongyuan so easily. Yan Zhongyuan could be considered as very strong even among martial artist level 8 experts. Bam! Great! How dare you make a fool of the Yan family? You have completely angered me. When Yan Gukong saw Yan Zhongyuan crippled by Emo San, the dragon-head walking stick in his hand smashed heavily on the floor. At the same time, a strong and dense aura started emitting from his body. He stared at Wang Xian with murderous intent. I have made my decision. You won't be stepping out of the Yan family's gate tonight. Yan Feng lifted his belt sword and pointed at Wang Xian. His belt sword was like an agile snake and had a dazzling glow. Let me destroy him. Yan Gili, who was beside Yan Gukong, walked over slowly with a heavy look. His eyes were fixed on Emo San. I'm really just a level 7 martial artist. Emo San pouted and looked at him with murderous intent. Emo Yuan, martial artist level 9. At this moment, Emo Qinglong's disciple, Emo Yuan, walked forward and passed Wang Xian. He maintained a cold smile while observing his surroundings. Emo San bowed to Emo Yuan before leaving. Emo Yuan nodded in response before looking to Yan Gili. Yan Gili's expression changed and the crowd was stunned. Everyone's attention was on Emo Yuan. It can't be. Emo Yuan looked so much stronger than Emo San. Emo San claimed to be martial artist level 7 but was able to easily crush martial artist level 8. Now we have Emo Yuan, who looks much stronger and is claiming to be martial artist level 9. How strong is this group of people? The martial artists around looked at Emo Yuan in disbelief. At this moment, they had put away their disdain and chose to take this group of people more seriously. Yan Gukong from the Yan family also squinted his eyes. His palm wrapped around the dragon-head walking stick tightly and he suddenly had a bad premonition. Yan Feng's expression had also turned heavy. He looked at Emo Yuan before looking across at the group of people behind Wang Xian. Playing tricks. Yan Gili's expression changed dramatically. He gritted his teeth and jumped towards Emo Yuan. You? Not good enough. Emo Yuan looked nonchalantly at Yan Gili and his face was filled with contempt. Die! Yan Gili's palm turned red, emitting dazzling and scorching light as he struck towards Emo Yuan's head. Dragon Claw! Emo Yuan was unmoved. Just as Yan Gili's attack was about to hit him, he swung his 5 fingers like a claw towards Yan Gili. Arg! Horror and shrieks sounded. Emo Yuan grabbed onto Yan Gili's arm easily. His eyes were filled with contempt as he said, "You are too weak." Next! Bam! Yan Gili was sent flying back and landed heavily in front of Yan Gukong. He was throwing out blood violently. Instant kill. How can this be possible? He can't be a level 9 martial artist. Definitely not. He is at least a half-step to Inborn Realm expert. Half-step to Inborn. Could it be that he is really at the half-step to Inborn Realm? Who is that juvenile? How is he able to bring along such powerful people? Shock. Everyone was stunned. No one had expected that juvenile to bring along such horrifying people. What would the Yan family do now? At this moment, the people in the crowd who had chided them to get on the good books of the Yan family previously were turning pale. They would have never expected this group of people to be so powerful. The members of the Yan family turned solemn. Even the arrogant looks on Yan Gukong were gone. Yan Feng had also put aside his arrogance and looked at Wang Xian in disbelief. He. Let's continue. Wang Xian said as he looked across the crowd at Emo Yuan. Yes. Emo Yuan nodded his head and turned his attention to Yan Gukong in the middle. Only you are qualified to be my opponent. Yan Gukong's expression turned ghastly and his hand that was holding onto the walking stick started shivering. This is unexpected. Really unexpected. May I ask, where are you guys from? Dragon sect. Emo Yuan said plainly. Dragon sect? I don't think we have any deep grudges between us. If we continue with this fight, you wouldn't come out unscathed. Yen Gukong stared at Imo Yuan as he spoke. Since you have offended our Dragon King, it's only natural to annihilate you. Imo Yuan pouted. As to whether we would come out unscathed, your Yen family isn't qualified to say that. You are really full of nonsense. Imo Yuan spoke, and as he finished his words, the devilish aura around him raged fiercely as he attacked Yen Gukong. Fight! Yen Gukong was shocked. The opponent was too overbearing. Get back! Get back! Battles between half-step to inborn experts could implicate a large area. Seeing the fight, the leader of the Ren family quickly retreated. All the ancient martial arts families also retreated in a hurry as they looked to the fight in horror. They had initially thought that the Yen family would announce the return of the king and dominate over all others. To their surprise, a juvenile brought a group of horrifying experts over that could even match Yen family's half-step to inborn realm expert. Father. That old man is likely to be even stronger than Imo Yuan. Ren Jian and the Ren family were dumbfounded by the fight. When Ren Jian saw the old man behind Wang Xian, he subconsciously recalled the events of that fateful night. He couldn't hold back his thoughts as he spoke to his father. The leader of the Ren family was slightly shocked as he turned his gaze towards the old man in front of the group of 50 people. The old man maintained a faint smile throughout and didn't seem to be concerned about the current battle. Jian, are you sure? The leader of the Ren family was shaking slightly. I'm sure. Ren Jian nodded his head heavily. Inborn expert. Horror crept into the leader of the Ren family. Chapter 139, He's the King of Rivertown, 1. Twists and turns, one after another. The eventful twists in the ancient martial arts world of Rivertown stunned everyone. First, Yen family declared a strong return as a king and oppressed the entire ancient martial arts world in Rivertown. Next, a mysterious young man led his dragon sect to challenge the Yen family. Everyone opened their eyes to a new world when they saw two half-step to inborn experts fighting at the stage of the training ground. But they were all waiting since their fates were closely linked to the victorious party. All the people from the Yen family were looking gloomy as they observed the showdown. Their arrogance and egotism were long gone. Too fast. We can't see their moves clearly. Is this the half-step to inborn experts combat? It's horrifying. All the martial artists retreated to the edge of the field as they watched the battle in horror. All they could see were two figures exchanging hands at a fast speed, but they could not see their strokes clearly. Yen Feng held his belt sword tightly as he stared at the field. Is this the best the Yen family can do? Just then, Imo Yuan's voice cut through the battle. How dare you be arrogant when you just became a half-step to inborn? You're gone. As Imo Yuan's cold bellow passed through again, the two entangled figures separated themselves. Puke. Yen Gukong's figure kept going back with his hand clasping at the dragon head walking stick. Caw caw caw. Puke. Yen Gukong's cheeks were flushed with redness as the dragonhead walking stick slowly cracked by itself. He spat a mouthful of blood and stared at Imo Yuan with an ashen face. What? Everyone was dumbfounded by what they saw. He was defeated. Yen Gukong from the Yen family was defeated. The Yen family is defeated. Rivertown is going to change hands again. That middle-aged man is incredibly powerful. Gone. No one thought that the day that the king returns would be the day they would be defeated. The surrounding martial artists had mixed expressions. Old Yen. Brother. The people from the Yen family held their breath as they ran towards Yen Gukong. All of them stared at Imo Yuan with an icy cold look. Yen Gukong was panting as he glared at Imo Yuan with a gloomy look. He gritted his teeth. I've lost. I think you can still go on. Imo Yuan walked towards Yen Gukong slowly with a sarcastic smile on his face. We admitted our loss. What else do you want? An old man from the Yen family asked Imo Yuan with an awful look. Just now, my friend was defeated. Didn't you cripple him? Wang Xian looked at the people from the Yan family with a mocking expression. He cast a look at Yan Feng. With a nonchalant face, he asked, "Now you know the consequences for threatening me." Yan Feng stared coldly at Wang Xian without all his calmness and arrogance. "I'm the disciple of the sacred seas of swords. My master is an inborn expert. If you dare to lay a finger on the Yan family, all of you will die." "Haha, inborn expert." Claps of thunderous laughter were heard. "Get your inborn expert from the Yan family out then. Otherwise, I'll be too bored." "Haha." Suddenly, the laughter took over the entire training ground. Everyone was surprised as they quickly located the source of the sound. An old man who had been standing in front of the 50 people walked out slowly. His hair was swaying even without the moving air as he exuded immense black aura from his body. The demonic aura lingered. Within a range of 10 meters in the sky, a demonic dragon roar could be heard vaguely. Gulps. Inborn. He's an inborn. An inborn showed up. That old man is actually an inborn. Gosh, the Yan family is finished. That old man is an inborn expert. Indeed, just as Jian said, he's an inborn, and he's even more daunting than those whom I've met. That imposing deposition was invincible. All the people around shuddered as they sensed the imposing demeanor of Imo Qinglong, the inborn expert with mighty and powerful oppression. The oppression made them tremble in their boots. "Inborn realm, would anyone from the Yan family like to fight with me?" Imo Qinglong stood beside Wang Xian and swept his cold gaze across all the members of the Yan family as he yelled. "Inborn!" Yan Gukong was shaking violently as despair flashed across his eyes. Everyone from the Yan family glanced at Imo Qinglong with fear and hopelessness. Just now, they were acting like they were invincible to all the martial artists in Rivertown, just like this inborn expert was doing now. But at this moment, they were like those martial artists from before, feeling frightened against this group of people. They had a deeper sense of despair and fear. "I heard that the Yan family was full of experts. The Dragon's sect would like to challenge them." Mo Yuan exuded his imposing aura and strolled behind Wang Xian. At the same time, the 50 Dragonians released their magnificent fighting spirit and disposition. Demonic aura lingered around the 50 Dragonians. As the aura gathered, they looked like an army of demons. Gosh! Everybody stared at Imo Yuan and the 50 Dragonians. All of them had fear in their eyes. All of them possessed a similar demeanor to Imo Shirsan. Where did this dragon sect come from? How could they be so terrifying? How can it be? Over 50 people who could crush Yan Zhongyuan. He. The Yan family is finished. How could it be? How could it be? Yan Gukong could not believe his eyes when he saw the demeanor displayed by the Dragonians. Yan Feng had an extremely awful look on his face. More than 50 powerful existences with a half-step to inborn and an inborn expert. Things had gone beyond his expectations. "What do you want?" Yan Gukong asked in a low voice with a dreadful look. Now, he did not even dare to raise his voice. He was no different from those families and martial artists just now. "You were the one who invited me here. What do you think?" Wang Xian looked at Yan Gukong, then turned to Yan Zhongyuan, who was on the floor, and Yan Feng. He asked playfully, "All of you said there will be another corpse in the Bohai Sea if I offended the Yan family. You all even asked me to think of my friends." "Huh." Wang Xian chuckled and stared at Yan Gukong. His expression turned cold. "You tell me what I should do." His words caused embarrassment to the Yan family. If anyone dared to speak to the Yan family like this, there would be no doubt about the consequence: extermination. When they thought about it, all of them trembled. "I'm the disciple of the sacred seas of swords. They have dozens of inborn experts." But this time, the Yan family lost, Yan Feng said slowly as his body shook and he stared at Wang Xian. His words hinted a warning and a plead. He mentioned sacred seas of swords because he wanted to protect the Yan family. Why are you admitting defeat now? Wang Xian stared at Yan Feng and said sarcastically. Didn't you want me to submit to the Yan family, and think about my friends? Besides, do you think I'll let you off when you mentioned sacred seas of swords? Chapter 140, He's the King of Rivertown, 2. Wang Xian's mocking voice resounded throughout the entire training field as everyone's attention fell on him. It was this juvenile who had offended the Yan family. Yan family had invited him over and was preparing to teach him a lesson. However, to the Yan family's surprise, he had called along a group of terrifying people with him. The disciple of the sacred seas of swords was still arrogantly demanding his surrender to the Yan family just a while ago. As of this moment, all he could do was make empty threats and beg for forgiveness. What a huge twist of events. At this juncture, Wang Xian wouldn't even be bothered by him. So what if you are from the sacred seas of swords? Wang Xian smirked and looked at Yan Feng. Yan Feng instantly got embarrassed. Watch your words. Mo Qinglong swung his arm and dense devilish aura penetrated into Yan Feng's body directly. He didn't even have the opportunity to react when his body stiffened. You destroyed my elixir field. Yan Feng's body shivered violently. His eyes were bloodshot as he stared at Mo Qinglong. Oh, do you think this is over? Threatening us with the sacred seas of swords? Mo Qinglong looked emotionlessly at Yan Feng and his eyes were filled with contempt. Yan Feng's body tensed up. He had not expected this group of people to be unafraid of the sacred seas of swords, or to cripple him directly. Helplessness and despair started welling up in his heart. This was the very first time he felt such emotions since he was born. Incredible. This group of people is too strong. They aren't even flinching when dealing with a disciple of the sacred seas of swords. That old man is an inborn expert. Using sacred seas of swords as a threat wouldn't be effective. Do you really expect the sacred seas of swords to risk their men to fight with an inborn expert for Yan Feng? Inborn experts could easily rule over an area. Yan Feng's threat was simply a taunt to the old man. He has truly caused his own demise. The Yan family is finished. The surrounding martial artists and families looked at this in shock as the Dragonians walked towards the Yan family members whose faces had turned as white as sheets. Every member of the Yan family looked on in despair. Wang Xian looked across Yan Feng and his family with contempt. He walked directly to old Duan to heal his injuries before helping him up. Thank you. Thank you, my benefactor, Wang Xian. Old Duan, who was previously filled with despair, was trembling in agitation and even wanted to go down on his knees to thank Wang Xian. Wang Xian patted him on his shoulders and replied, "It's all right. I leave this to you guys. I'll be waiting for you at the pavilion by the side." Wang Xian said to Mo Qinglong. "Yes, Dragon King." Mo Qinglong nodded his head respectfully. That old man was addressing that juvenile as Dragon King? An inborn expert has to be so respectful to that juvenile? What is his real identity to have an inborn expert obeying his commands? Can it be that he is from an even stronger ancient martial arts family? Upon seeing how Mo Qinglong reacted to Wang Xian, everyone around was dumbfounded. Seeing the juvenile walking freely to the pavilion and even pouring himself a cup of tea under such circumstances, they couldn't help but have even more respect for him. This was probably what they called the demeanor of a king. That insufferably arrogant Yan Feng from the Yan Feng was miles apart from this juvenile, who was unfazed by the circumstances. All he did was say a few words and smile as he watched, and he could decide the survival of your family. This difference in demeanor was distinct. Wang Xian sat within the pavilion leisurely. He had vented his frustration that had built up because of the Yan family, and what was remaining could be easily dealt with by Mo Qinglong. Mo Qinglong was from the ancient Fiend clan and would naturally know how to deal with such matters. This time, the Yan family would truly be erased from Rivertown. Great tea! Despite the incessant screams and wails, Wang Xian ignored all of them and simply focused on enjoying his tea. The tea was fragrant and made one want more of it. Wang Xian loved to drink tea and disliked drinking alcohol. This was because of the influence of his neighbor, Uncle Zhang. The Yan family's mountain villa had beautiful scenery. In front of the pavilion was a small stream. Enjoying the scenery while drinking tea was a great way for one to liven up. However, I still like to be near the seas during the spring. Moreover, I could even dive into the sea to look around when I have nothing to do. Hee hee. Wang Xian mumbled to himself. Dragon King. After half an hour, Mo Qinglong brought a group of people over as he reported to Wang Xian respectfully. The Dragonians didn't follow over. The group of people behind Mo Qinglong were all martial artists and families of Rivertown. Dragon King. All the martial artists and families of Rivertown hesitated for a moment before greeting Wang Xian in the same respectful manner. Wang Xian nodded his head and smiled faintly to Mo Qinglong. Are you done? Everything has been settled. Moreover, this incident won't leak out. Mo Qinglong smiled. This wasn't the doings of the dragon sect but the doings of all the martial artists and families in Rivertown. Everyone who was present wouldn't spread this incident, they wouldn't dare to. All they had to do was to treat the Yan family as if they had never returned. The only possible issue would be Yan Feng's identity as the disciple of the sacred seas of swords. However, the dragon sect wasn't fearful of them. Wang Xian nodded his head. Thank you, Dragon King, for breaking us free from the control of the Yan family. If the Dragon King is to encounter any issues, you could instruct our Ren family and we wouldn't reject your request. Thank you, Dragon King. Just a word from the Dragon King and we, the martial artists of Rivertown, would risk our lives to complete your task in the future. Thank you, Dragon King. The family head of the Ren family immediately thanked Wang Xian. Currently, the circumstances of Rivertown had changed. This juvenile in front of him would be the ruler of the underworld of Rivertown. The remaining martial artists and families also expressed their gratitude immediately and made their loyalty pledges. Looking from another perspective, they had surrendered their services to the Dragon Sect. Dragon Sect was different from the Yan family. Dragon Sect had an inborn expert. Even if they were restricted by the Dragon Sect, they were willing to be so. When one's strength reached a level where others could only look up to them, they would not choose to resist, but rather to follow. Wang Xian listened to the loyalty pledges of various martial artists and families before waving his hand. Everything will be as before. Don't cause trouble in Rivertown and stay within your area. Oh, right. I've opened a medical hall along Old Street. If you suffered grave injuries or have lingering injuries, you can come to me for treatment. I have to inform you guys that the fees are very high. Wang Xian spoke nonchalantly. However, the martial artists and families in front of them were all shocked. What does he mean? Everything as before? Don't cause troubles. He operates a medical hall. What this would mean is that he will not be consolidating the underworld of Rivertown. He will not be declaring himself as the ruler and will not rob us of our interests. And he operates a medical hall? This. Everyone was taken aback. Every single one of them had already prepared their pledges of allegiance, prepared to lose a large portion of their interests and prepared to make Wang Xian their leader. However, Wang Xian wanted them to carry on as before. Thank you, Dragon King, for your compassion. Thank you, Dragon King, for your compassion. All the martial artists and families were agitated and looked at Wang Xian with deep respect. They bowed down immediately as they expressed their gratitude. Wang Xian smiled and waved his hand. He looked to Old Shui and said, Old Shui, look for me at my medical hall at noon tomorrow. I'll take a look at your injuries. Yes. Seeing Wang Xian talking to him caringly, Old Shui got agitated. He sighed emotionally, thank you, Brother Wang Xian. Don't stand on ceremony. Everyone, I have to go. It's already past 9 p.m. and I have something in school. Wang Xian smiled, turned around and left. This compassion and demeanor. In Rivertown, he's the king. If he's the king, I'm convinced. Chapter 141, Mad Doctor, 1. Wang Xian is different from other people. Old Shui exclaimed as he looked at Wang Xian. He listened to what everyone was saying around him and felt lucky that he managed to befriend someone who valued friendship. Old Shui knew that he was crippled by the Yan family because of Wang Xian. Wang Xian would surely keep this in mind. From now on, the Shui family would have a more comfortable life in Rivertown. No one dared to mess around with them. Indeed. If it were the Yan family or other families, they would get us to cough out enough interest even if they didn't rule over us. The family head of the Ren family looked at Old Shui and joked, "If Old Shui needs any help, you can look for me, Ren Tianhong. Since the Shui family has such a connection with strong backing, we must have more bonding." Haha, the Shui family is lucky only. When Old Shui heard him, he chuckled and made some polite remarks. He knew that the Ren family head might sound like he was joking, but it was from the bottom of his heart too. "Old Shui, you're fortunate." "Yes, Old Shui. Let's find a time for a martial arts sharing session." All the martial artists and the family spoke to Old Shui fervently. Given the Shui family and that Dragon King's status now, it was worth associating with them. Even though that young Dragon King did not rule the martial arts circle in Rivertown, the Dragon sect had shown their capabilities and that none of them could be matched. Besides, they admired the Dragon King from their hearts. At least Rivertown would stay peaceful with him around. A situation like what happened in the Yan family would not happen again. It's all because of the Dragon King. They had the most heartfelt respect for him. The Dragon King said he opened a medical hall at the old street. Shall we pay him a visit? Yes, we should. We can go over with some gifts. But there can't be too many of us. The Dragon King might find us irritating. Why don't we gather the gifts and get Old Shui or Old Duan or Ren family head to send them over? This is feasible. We can prepare a huge gift as a token of appreciation under the name of all martial artists and families for the Dragon King. Today, the Dragon King did us a huge favor. That's right. All the martial artists of Rivertown agreed. Sometimes, that was the case. If they were being oppressed, they would put up resistance and even retaliate. But when help was rendered to them, they would be genuinely grateful and respectful. Wang Xian may not have gotten them to submit to him, but they would obey any orders from Wang Xian immediately. This was the impact of a powerful and generous man. Wang Xian, walking on the road, did not know his unintentional act had impacted the martial artists and the families in Rivertown. Wang Xian had never thought of asking them to submit to him. Not that he never thought of it, but rather, he was not interested in them. The highest level they had was level 9 martial artists. With only one or two such people, what could they do? Too weak. They were so weak that Wang Xian had no intention to keep them for his use. At the same time, it was not necessary to get them to surrender some of their interests like how the Yan family had. Wang Xian disdained such intimidating practices. As a divine dragon that would roam the 9 skies in the future, he must have class. He could earn money by himself or even fish from the sea. But obtaining them through such methods? He would not stoop to it. Wang Xian was only concerned about his future businesses of the medical hall. After tonight, he believed any martial artist who was injured would look for him in the future. This could help to drive more business and make more money. Wang Xian loved the feeling of making money by himself. When he was back in school, it was already 9:30 p.m. Wang Xian quickly headed to the eastern hill. It still was not too late. He ran over with a smiling face as soon as he spotted a spark of fire lit on the eastern hill. "Xiao Xian, you reached it. Have you settled all your things?" Guan Shuqing asked smilingly, as though she was waiting for her husband to return. "Yes, I'm here. Is the food ready?" After he settled the Yan family, Wang Xian was in a chirpy mood. He squatted down and rubbed his palms while looking at the food in the cooking pot. It's almost done. Hee hee. It still feels more comfortable to be able to cook our own food here. The atmosphere is better here compared to eating in the first-grade restaurant. Guan Shuqing removed the lid as she smiled, blowing the steam away. Really? Then we shall have all our meals here. Wang Xian said with a smile. Sure. Guan Shuqing happily nodded her head and sat closer to Wang Xian. Wang Xian gently placed his arm over her as he smiled. Guan Shuqing was stunned for a moment with her cheeks flushed with redness. But darkness helped to conceal her blushing face. It's done. Here, Xiao Xian. Let's dig in. Guan Shuqing took the lid away happily. Great, I will help you with the shells. Wang Xian smiled and nodded his head. Eastern Hill, outdoor picnic. It was cozy and relaxed. No one would have thought that the dominating king from just now would be having an outdoor picnic, eating seafood with a girl. The relationship between Guan Shuqing and Wang Xian had finally been confirmed, except for not having their nuptial chamber. Wang Xian was pondering when he could proceed to the next step. Heh. The next morning, Wang Xian went to the medical hall as soon as he woke up. He opened the door and placed the signage with the rules at the entrance. Wang Xian made himself tea and took out the gifts sent from Old Shui and Old Qin the other time. Old Qin gave him a box of 100-years-old ginseng. A very precious one. On the other hand, Old Shui gave him a secret medical manual. Wang Xian was feeling bored, so he began to read the manual. This manual was obviously written by a doctor who practiced ancient martial arts. The book recorded many case studies and treatment methods. Wang Xian did not know the treatment methods. He treated people using his mighty dragon energy and the vitality of the wood attribute. Of course, there were pros and cons to this. Reading some of these medical books would benefit him when he treated others in the future. The September sun continued to shine. Wang Xian lay on the deck chair in the room with a smiling face. He sipped his tea and read his books, enjoying a relaxing afternoon. Hoo. Just then, the ambulance siren echoed through the road on the old street. Wang Xian paused and put down his teacup slowly before he went outside to have a look. Doctor. Where's the doctor? At the same time, two men barged in and raised their voices inside. Wang Xian knit his eyebrow slightly. There's no doctor here. If you have a patient, you can carry him to one of the chairs in the room. Fuck. What kind of fucking medical hall is this? The doctor recommended we go here. If they delayed my dad's treatment, I'll fucking kill them all. The middle-aged was very nasty with his words. He shouted outside, Doctor, are you sure this is the place for treatment? Yes, this is the place. Hurry. Bring the patient in. Dr. Sun was not surprised by the poor attitude of the patient's family member. With a large number of patients in the hospital, they'd met all kinds of weirdo family members before. Chapter 142, Mad Doctor, 2. If my father doesn't recover after going through so many troubles, don't blame me for being violent. A middle-aged man looked furiously at Dr. Sun and roared. Dr. Sun frowned. Sir, you have agreed to our sending him here. If it wasn't because of your recommendation, why would I send my father here? No matter what, let's cure my father before speaking, the middle-aged man said impatiently. Dr. Sun did not pay attention to the middle-aged man and said to the group of nurses, Come, carry the patient into the medical hall. All right, Dr. Sun. Four nurses placed an old man on a stretcher before walking into the medical hall. Place him on the bed. Wang Xian said to the nurses, seeing them carrying a patient in. He knew that this was a referral from the hospital. Where are the attendants of the medical hall? Where's the doctor? Why isn't there any equipment around? Give my father the treatment right away. The middle-aged man followed into the medical hall, looking around and growling. Calm down. Since the hospital has sent the patient here, I'll be able to cure him. Wang Xian frowned slightly as he spoke to the middle-aged man. Hurry over and start the treatment for my father then. We can't afford any delay. Hurry up. My father's treatment has been delayed by over 10 hours. Even if he was fine previously, he won't be now. The middle-aged and 30-plus-year-old man demanded impatiently. Wang Xian frowned and walked slowly to the patient. Dr. Sun walked to Wang Xian and asked with eyes of admiration, "Miracle Dr. Wang, the patient's heart is failing and his situation is dire. What our hospital could do for such dire state patient is simply extending his life by a few days, but we are not able to cure him completely. Therefore, we have sought the intentions of his family members and sent him here. Do you have any solutions? Let me take a look." Wang Xian nodded his head as he stretched his hand over and placed it on the chest of the old man. "You are the doctor? So young?" At this moment, a few middle-aged and young men looked at Wang Xian in shock. They had not expected the doctor of this medical hall to be a juvenile. Is he even reliable? Wang Xian ignored them and did a sensing of the old man's body. Treatment wouldn't be difficult. I can cure him. Wang Xian lifted his head as he spoke to Dr. Sunday. "Miracle Dr. Wang, you are so incredible," Dr. Sun said in admiration. Wang Xian smiled and looked to the middle-aged man. His lips curved into a smile and he said, "Your father's illness is curable." Really? The middle-aged man was taken aback and a little shocked. Curable? Wang Xian nodded his head. Can we kindly ask Dr. Wang to start treatment? The middle-aged man kept his temperament in check and squeezed out a smile. Payment before treatment. Wang Xian said plainly. I wouldn't pay you any less. Hurry up and treat my father before we talk about this, the middle-aged man replied unhappily. Hee hee. Wang Xian looked at the middle-aged man and revealed a faint smile. He walked to the chair beside him and said, $8 million for treatment. Once you've paid up, I can guarantee his recovery. If you don't pay or not have the money, just bring him out. Wang Xian sat on the chair and poured himself a cup of tea. What, $8 million? Why don't you just go and rob? The middle-aged man was shocked by Wang Xian. He flared up and pointed his fingers furiously at Wang Xian. Initially, $2 million was enough for your father's treatment. However, you have a bad attitude. It's $8 million now. Pay up if you want treatment. Otherwise, scram. Wang Xian spoke coldly to the middle-aged man and the crowd. You. The middle-aged man and the few young men were enraged. They stared hideously at Wang Xian. Brat, do you know who I am? I am giving you a warning right now. Treat my father immediately or I won't be courteous with you. Oh, hee hee. Wang Xian looked at them with mocking eyes. The price is $10 million now. Brat, you must be courting death. Green veins lifted out of the middle-aged man's arms as he walked towards Wang Xian. Sir, please calm down. Seeing the enraged middle-aged man and crowd, Director Sun quickly interrupted. Scram. Your hospital must be thinking of robbing us. A young man shouted coldly at Director Sunday. Brat, treat my father right away. Once he recovers, I'll give you $2 million. Don't test my patience. The middle-aged man walked to Wang Xian and looked down at him as he spoke solemnly. He rolled up his sleeves and revealed his tattoos. Wang Xian looked mockingly at the middle-aged man and said, $15 million. Fuck you. TSK. How dare you kick up a fuss in Divine Dragon Medical Hall? Just as the middle-aged man extended his arm and was grabbing towards Wang Xian's arm, a cold shout sounded from outside the medical hall. The middle-aged man paused and stared angrily at the entrance. However, when he saw the group of people at the entrance, his face stiffened up gradually. The middle-aged man stared at the 6 people, dumbfounded. His body couldn't help but shiver. The head of the Ren family, Hu Fei of the Hu family, Old Shui, Shui Jing and Old Duan. When his gaze met the head of the Ren family, fear crept upon him. Ren family used to be the #1 ancient martial artist family in Rivertown before the Yen family announced their return. The Ren family had great strength and influence in the entire Rivertown. Moreover, the head of the Ren family was also the director of an organization. The middle-aged man had met him once when his father brought him to a banquet. His father had warned him solemnly that the family head of the Ren family could not be offended as he could annihilate them with just a wave of his hand. His father had also briefed him a little about the situation of the ancient martial arts circle in Rivertown. This petrified him. He had never expected that there was such a horrifying group of people that still existed in the current era. Why would the family head of Ren family come to this medical hall? He's the leader of the #2 ancient martial artist family in Rivertown. Fear crept up to the middle-aged man. You must be courting death. At this moment, the family head of the Ren family moved his palm and 2 silverish beads shot towards the middle-aged man. Arg! All the middle-aged man could feel was intense pain on his knees as though they were broken. He couldn't resist the pain and landed on his knees directly. Cold sweat broke out on his head. Big brother! Big brother! The few young men ran towards the middle-aged man instinctively when they saw him going on his knees suddenly. I'm sorry, Ren family head, I'm sorry. If there's something that I've done badly, I'll definitely change. The middle-aged man ignored his brother's exclamations. He immediately begged for forgiveness from the Ren family head while enduring the intense pain of his legs. He didn't dare to have any sense of resistance of unhappiness. You must be looking for death to kick up a fuss in the Divine Dragon Medical Hall. Ren family head shouted coldly at the middle-aged man. I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Miracle doctor, please forgive me this time. The middle-aged man turned to face Wang Xian, kowtowed in a hurry and begged for Wang Xian's forgiveness. Wang Xian looked at the middle-aged man on his knees and shook his head in contempt. He was completely different from his arrogant self just a while ago. To cure your crippled legs, $5 million. Chapter 143, The Miracle Doctor Chart. In the Divine Dragon Medical Hall. A middle-aged man was shuddering as he lay on the bed next to his father. A few juveniles were standing at the side with caution. They wailed softly and did not dare to move, let alone talk. Scary. They did not know that the owner of this medical hall had such a strong background. Gazing at their elder brother and father who were lying on the beds, their faces turned pale. Initially, it only cost 2 million for the treatment. Now, it had shot up to 20 million. It's 20 million. How much can the Zhao family's companies pay? However, given such a circumstance now, they must pay. They had to pay. Because of their arrogance just now, they needed to pay a painful price 10 times more than before. Dragon King, these are some of our tokens of appreciations from the martial artists and families in Rivertown. I hope you can accept them. Yes, Dragon King. Please accept them. Let us know if we can be of some use to you in Rivertown in the future. The Ren family head, Old Duan, and Hu Fei spoke to Wang Xian fervently and respectfully. Your thoughts are appreciated. Just leave it aside, and calling me Wang Xian will do. Wang Xian smiled and nodded at them. Yes. The group of people smiled and nodded. They looked around and said with some hesitation, then we'll take our leave now. Please rest well. Okay, I still have some patients to attend to. Thank you for your concern. Wang Xian nodded with a smile. You're welcome. The group of people beamed at Wang Xian. Okay. Wang Xian nodded his head. Ren family head and the rest left, but only Old Shui stayed put. Old Shui, let me check your body, Wang Xian said to Old Shui with a smile. Thank you, Wang Xian. Old Shui thanked him as he followed Wang Xian to the second floor. In fact, Wang Xian had already cured Old Shui's injuries. But because Old Shui got implicated because of him last night, he decided to reward Old Shui. Lie down. I'll unblock your meridians for you. Wang Xian said with a smile. Unblock the meridians? Old Shui hesitated as he revealed a pondering look. He lay on the bed slowly. Wang Xian placed his hand inside Old Shui's body and injected an immense amount of dragon energy into his meridians. Even though Old Shui was a level 7 martial artist, his conception vessel and governing vessel were not unblocked yet. He did not use the dragon energy to unblock them. Instead, he unblocked all the vessels before the conception vessel and governing vessel. That is to say, if Old Shui wanted to attain level 9 in the future, it would take him a few months to do so, and it would be a breeze for him. Wang Xian clearly distinguished his gratitude and resentment. Old Shui moved his body on the bed, looking shocked. Done. Wang Xian smiled as he opened his eyes slightly. My meridians are unblocked. You actually unblocked my meridians. Old Shui flinched as he stared at Wang Xian with disbelief. You had a tough time yesterday. Wang Xian shook his head and smiled. Compared to what I have now, the pain I received yesterday was nothing. Old Shui shook his head and exclaimed. Others envied that I can make friends with you. I'm also envious of myself now. Unblocking the meridians. Only the top 10 miracle doctors of the Miracle Doctor chart can do this. Your medical skill is extremely terrific. Miracle Doctor chart. You didn't know about it? Asked Old Shui doubtfully. Wang Xian shook his head. The Miracle Doctor chart is an international chart that consists of the top-notch miracle doctors in the world. The first on the chart is Hand of God from Europe. He's recognized as the world's #1. It is said that he is capable of reviving the dead. The second on the chart is Medical Saint from China. He's the current head of the Medical Saint sect. The third one is Sacred One, the head of the Sacred Followers Guild. Fourth is Emperor Samama from India and fifth is King Sanha from an island country. It is said that each miracle doctor is highly skilled in medicines, and they can also use special techniques to unblock the meridians to increase the cultivation speed. Of course, unblocking meridians needs to consume a large number of herbs. So it is tedious. Wang Xian, I'm really grateful that you can help me unblock them, Old Shui said to Wang Xian thankfully. Wang Xian nodded his head slowly. He did not know that there was such a chart around in the world. Wang Xian, I'll not disturb you further. Let me know when you need any help. Old Shui cupped his fist and said. Sure, Old Shui. Wang Xian nodded his head and sent Old Shui to the door. After which, he spun around and looked at those who were standing in the medical hall obediently. Wang Xian revealed a faint smile. He walked over and gave them treatment. Dr. Sun stood by the side with curiosity piqued. Her eyes were full of admiration. For the subsequent days, the Divine Dragon Medical Hall was finally made known in Rivertown. Every day, there would be 2 or 3 patients turning up at the medical hall to seek treatment. At the same time, not only did the medical skills of Miracle Dr. Wang become famous, but also the rules of the medical hall. Apart from the expensive fees, the patients must have a good attitude. Otherwise, no one knew how much Miracle Dr. Wang would quote for the cost of treatment. The medical hall received 2 or 3 patients and earned about 6 to 10 million a day. Within a short period of 10 days, his deposits hit $150 million. Tisk, I'm also a billionaire now. Wang Xian lay on his deck chair and smiled to himself. Wang Xian was delighted as he'd penniless in the first place, but now he had $150 million in his hand. Brother. At this time, he suddenly heard Xiao Yu's voice. Wang Xian spun around and saw Xiao Yu, who was beautifully dressed. Ever since he'd strengthened Xiao Yu's constitution with his dragon energy, the military training was much easier for her. Her skin was not that tanned anymore. You got a break? Asked Wang Xian with a smile. Yes. I don't have military training tonight, and tomorrow is the last day of it. Xiao Yu walked in happily. She grinned at Wang Xian. Why are you lying down here like an uncle? Hee, I'm relaxing. Get me a cup of tea, said Wang Xian smilingly to Xiao Yu. Sure, my brother. Xiao Yu walked to the side, filled the teacup, and passed it to Wang Xian. "Brother, it's National Day soon. When are we going back?" "National Day?" Wang Xian paused and looked at his phone. Indeed, it was almost the end of the month. I had forgotten about it. "We're not going back. Brother, Sister Li is getting married on National Day. Don't you want to go back?" Xiao Yu rolled her eyes at Wang Xian. Then she picked up a huge Bodhi figure from the table. "She's getting married?" Wang Xian was stunned. "But Uncle Zhang did not tell me." "Sister Li told me. So I guess Uncle Zhang didn't tell you." "We need to go back on National Day," said Xiao Yu. She hesitated and decided to continue. "Brother, I want to tell you something. But you must not let anyone you know. A lady asked me to be her disciple and join her sect. I agreed." Chapter 144, Thistles and Thorns Sect. What? When Wang Xian heard his sister, he stood up immediately and stared at her in shock. "Brother, calm down. This isn't anything bad." Seeing her brother's agitated looks, Xiao Yu explained, "This was a rather sci-fi matter. Initially, I couldn't believe it either. However, when my master displayed unbelievable abilities, I realized that there are people who can walk on walls and injure others with just a leaf in this world. Brother, I'm going to become a heroine in the future." Wang Xian's eyebrows knitted together. "What's the name of the sect you are joining?" "Thistles and Thorns Sect. My master told me that our sect is very strong and is a second-class sect. Moreover, my master is incredible and is a level 8 martial artist." Xiao Yu answered before asking curiously, "Brother, do you know about sects?" Wang Xian nodded his head gradually. Wang Xian had not told Xiao Yu about the matters of the underworld. Since she had joined a sect by coincidence, Wang Xian did not intend to hide further. "Brother, you know about them too?" Xiao Yu's eyes stared, opened wide as she looked at Wang Xian in disbelief. "Do you think your brother's medical hall is just any ordinary medical hall?" Wang Xian smiled and said to Xiao Yu. Xiao Yu's eyes popped open and looked at Wang Xian in disbelief. She then asked suddenly, "Brother, you are so bad. Why don't you tell me about these things?" You are really bad to hide it from me. I wanted to share this matter with you once I learn about it. You have changed. Cough cough cough. Wang Xian started coughing violently upon hearing Xiao Yu. All right. It's your brother's fault. I just thought that the timing wasn't right." Xiao Yu stared at him and was clearly displeased. Wang Xian smiled and quickly walked in front of her. "Did your master teach you any cultivation arts?" "Nope. Last night, my master said that I have great body constitution and talents. However, she said that I have to undergo examinations with other disciples tomorrow night before teaching us cultivation arts." Xiao Yu answered. "Tomorrow night? I'll go with you tomorrow." Wang Xian hesitated for a while before he shook. "Brother, you are going with me? This might not be acceptable." Xiao Yu replied shyly. "It will be fine. You can tell them I'm from the ancient martial arts circle too. Moreover, since you are entering the ancient martial arts circle, your master will know that you can't hide it from your family." "I don't think she will say no," Wang Xian said. All right then, let me ask my master." Xiao Yu nodded her head and continued, "Brother, my master is a really, really beautiful lady." "Is she? That's great. If your master was a guy, I might not agree to him taking you as a disciple," Wang Xian joked. Xiao Yu rolled her eyes at him. "The main reason why I'm here today is to ask you something. Brother, now that you are so rich, should we buy some presents for Sister Li's wedding? Also, shall we get some presents for Uncle Zhang?" Wang Xian nodded his head. "Let me get some gifts for Uncle Zhang and Sister Li. Uncle Zhang and his family have been taking care of us. It's about time that we repay and thank him. Uncle Zhang had always seen them as his own family and took great care of them." For some people, although they weren't related by blood, their relationships were closer than those with blood ties. Wang Xian and Xiao Yu had always remembered how Uncle Zhang had taken care of them and their grandmother. It's only natural for them to return this gratitude as though Uncle Zhang was their kin. I'll leave this to brother then. I'm hungry, brother. Bring me out for dinner. Xiao Yu pulled her brother's hands as she asked him. What do you want to have for dinner? Wang Xian caressed her head and asked. I want to have steamboat. Why don't we ask sister-in-law to eat with us? Xiao Yu smiled and asked. All right. Before this, follow me to the upper story. Wang Xian brought Xiao Yu to the upper story and asked her to lie on the bed. Brother, what do you want to do? Xiao Yu looked inquisitively at Wang Xian and asked. I'm not sick. Just lie down. Let brother examine your health. Wang Xian patted on her head. I'll make you sleep for 5 minutes in a while. Close your eyes. Oh. Xiao Yu nodded her head and closed her eyes. She knew that what her brother was doing would be for her good. Wang Xian tapped lightly on Xiao Yu's body and she fell unconscious immediately. Over the last few days, he had been reading some medical books. He understood a little about how to knock one unconscious by tapping at certain spots of the body. These small techniques were still useful for him. Regardless of whether Thistles and Thorns sect is good or bad, since Xiao Yu will be entering the ancient martial arts circle, let me strengthen her body a little. The reason why Xiao Yu was spotted by her master was probably because Wang Xian had strengthened her body previously. While Wang Xian was at it, he decided to help Xiao Yu open all her meridians. He wanted Xiao Yu to be an existence that equaled one who was favored by gods no matter where she was. Dense dragon energy entered Xiao Yu's body and into her meridians directly. Xiao Yu's body had been strengthened previously. There were almost no impurities in her body. And now, all 8 extraordinary meridians were opened. Based on what Wang Xian knew of the ancient martial arts circle, those that were born with their 8 extraordinary meridians opened were known as having an inborn constitution. Inborn constitution only existed within the myths. There might not be even one in 100 million people. However, as long as one with inborn constitution was to start cultivating, he would definitely reach the inborn realm. Horrifying. After exhausting some dragon energy to open all 8 extraordinary meridians on Xiao Yu, Wang Xian tapped on her body again. Brother, it's done. After recovering consciousness, Xiao Yu looked at Wang Xian. Alright, let's go have steamboat. Wang Xian smiled and went over to first-grade restaurant to get Guan Shuqing. After which, they walked to the steamboat restaurant around the corner. 8 p.m. Wang Xian sent Xiao Yu back to the dormitory before returning to the medical hall to give Old Shui a call. Old Shui, I have something to ask you. Do you know anything about Thistles and Thorns sect? Wang Xian went straight to the point. Thistles and Thorns sect? Old Shui was taken aback slightly. I know a little about them. They are a rather good sect within the province and could be considered as a second-class sect. Nonetheless, their actions are righteous and open and they could be considered as an orthodox sect. The sect leader is a half-step to inborn expert. I heard that there are several sects who come to Rivertown to recruit disciples recently. Did Brother Wang Xian come across them? My sister was selected by a member of the Thistles and Thorns sect. Therefore, I'm just asking around, replied Wang Xian. In that case, please give me some time. I'll get you more detailed information, Old Shui immediately replied. Alright, thank you, Old Shui. Wang Xian nodded his head. In less than 10 minutes, an information file was sent to Wang Xian. Wang Xian opened it with his computer. Not only was there information on Thistles and Thorns sect, but there was also information on other sections. Chapter 145, Selection of Disciples. The Thistles and Thorns sect was an influential second-class sect in the province. They had a half-step to inborn expert and dozens of level 9 martial artists in the sect. There were 3 sects in the southern province. One was the third-class sect, Green Lotus Sword sect. Another one was also a second-class sect, Northern Summit sect. Of course, not including some substandard sections. These 3 sects were recruiting disciples in the entire southern province. However, a few sects came to Rivertown for recruitment because there were no sects in the Rivertown, except for those martial art families. But the families never released their art of cultivation to outsiders. This meant that there was a chance of finding many talented people in Rivertown. On top of that, the Yen family was said to be exterminated by a mysterious expert. These sects got outrageous since the Rivertown suffered a loss in strength. Looks like there isn't many powerful sects or families in the entire southern province. Wang Xian looked at the information he got and grinned. Tomorrow, I shall check them out with Xiaoyu. Wang Xian thought to himself. He then shut down his computer and walked towards his dormitory. The next morning, Wang Xian received a notification from Xiaoyu that her master agreed to let him come along. At about 6 p.m., Wang Xian arrived at the school entrance. When he reached it, he spotted Xiaoyu waiting with a woman. Wang Xian looked at her. Referring to her as a woman sounded a little too old for her. She should be a young woman, as she looked to be about 30 years old with a perfect figure. This was the best figure Wang Xian had ever seen, wearing quaint clothes. Her hair was bunned up, and she had fair and flawless skin. Her watery and bright eyes looked very beautiful. In comparison, even Guan Shuqing and Lan Qingyue lost out to her as their charms were lacking. Xiaoyu. Wang Xian put on a smiling face as he shouted. Brother. Xiaoyu beamed as she waved her hand. She immediately turned to the woman and said, Master, he's my elder brother. Okay. That woman nodded as she fixed her gaze on Wang Xian and began to observe him before shifting her eyes away again. Brother, this is my master. Xiaoyu introduced softly. Hello. Wang Xian greeted the woman. Follow me. It's getting late, the woman said to them with a nod. Yes, master. Xiaoyu stuck out her tongue and beckoned Wang Xian as they followed her master to a Mercedes car. Elder Fong. A middle-aged driver greeted the woman respectfully in the car. Let's go, said the woman. Yes. The driver nodded and started the car immediately. Brother, my master wanted me to remind you not to speak or walk around when you're there. Just keep still and watch. There should be a lot of people tonight, Xiaoyu whispered a reminder to Wang Xian in the back of the car. Don't worry. Wang Xian smiled and patted her head. The car drove out of the city for an hour before they came to the cross-border between Rivertown and Pengzhou. Pengzhou was Wang Xian's hometown, but they were still far from his home. The car stopped in a somewhat remote area, where there was a small neighborhood. When the car entered, Wang Xian realized that this district was not as simple as it seemed. The environment in this district was pleasant. But in this neighborhood, someone could jump up to a stone platform that was as high as 3 to 4 meters. Many weapons like machetes, spears, and rods were found in the surroundings, which seemed a little out of the world. This must be a branch of the Thistles and Thorns sect, or their headquarters. Wang Xian pondered to himself when the car was parked in a parking lot. Wang Xian looked around and realized many branded cars were parked over here. There were a total of 40 to 50 cars with Pengzhou and Rivertown's car plates around. Follow me, the woman said coldly, leading them from the front. They came to somewhere at the back with a training ground in front. But a crystal-like thing was placed in the middle of it. The crystal was a hexagon shape, emitting a special glow that looked extraordinary, with tall and huge poplars surrounding it. At this time, hundreds of people were standing in the field. There was a middle-aged man in a suit with a juvenile beside him, and a well-dressed old man with his grandchild. Based on their dressing, it was easy to tell that they were rich people. Both of you wait here and don't run around. The sect will begin the test later. I'll be leaving to settle some stuff now. Xiaoyu's master reminded them of this before she walked to a room. Xiaoyu nodded and looked around with curiosity. So many people. At least dozens of them want to join the Thistles and Thorns sect. Wang Xian observed the surrounding with a curious look on his face. Brother, not every one of them can enter the sect. Most of them will be eliminated, Xiaoyu said to him with pride on her face, but my master said that I just need to go through the process. After that, I can join the Thistles and Thorns sect for sure. You're amazing. Wang Xian smiled and said to Xiaoyu. Of course. I'm definitely awesome. Xiaoyu raised her chin slightly and said in a cute voice. Sigh, I wonder if my child can make it into the Thistles and Thorns sect. Certainly, Director Zhao. Your son is suave and charming. He must be a talent. I hope so. Director Wang, your son has an 80% chance. I heard he was praised by an expert. Well, my son did not let me down. That expert said my son has high hopes. This time, it is a rare opportunity in the last 10 years for Thistles and Thorns sect to recruit disciples in the open. I hope my son or daughter can get in. The discussions around Wang Xian made him understand something. The Thistles and Thorns sect not only sent their men to recruit disciples. Some people with resources brought their children to join too. It would just depend on their endowment to join the sect. Hey, excuse me. Just then, a voice that was louder than the discussion was heard. Everyone was discussing at a soft volume, as they did not dare to raise their voice. Apparently, this person did not care about it. All the people frowned slightly and looked over with a displeased look. That is the Song family. It's the Song family. I heard that someone from the Song family joined the Thistles and Thorns sect a few decades ago. Now, he's the elder of the sect. Each time, a member of the Song family can join the Thistles and Thorns sect directly. Song family of Pengzhou. They are the colossal existence in Pengzhou. No wonder they dare to raise their voice here. That juvenile is Song Aowen. I heard he was selected by that elder in the Song family when he was a child. That elder taught him cultivation art. Now, he's only 18, and he is already a level 4 martial artist with astonishing talents. He almost can join the Thistles and Thorns sect straight away. One that is favored by God. This is the supreme talent. One by one, they spun around to look at the incoming person with amazed looks on their faces. Xiaoyu also looked over with her curiosity piqued. An imposing juvenile in white had his chin up, and a haughty look on his face. A level 4 martial artist. He's awesome. Xiaoyu exclaimed softly with a face full of envy. You will soon become one too. Don't worry. Wang Xian smiled. Given Xiaoyu's inborn constitution now, she could easily hit level 4. Do you think it's that easy to become a level 4 martial artist? At this time, a contemptuous voice was heard. Chapter 146, Shiver in Fear, 1. A voice that had a mocking intonation caused Wang Xian and Xiaoyu to frown slightly. Xiaoyu turned around angrily and looked to the one who was speaking. The voice came from a girl that was approximately 17 to 18 years old. She had a ponytail and looked extremely pretty. Her proud demeanor made her look just like a little swan. I'm talking to my brother and this has nothing to do with you. Moreover, as long as I work hard, I'll be able to reach martial artist level 4 quickly. Xiaoyu gave the girl a harsh stare as she spoke grumpily. You? Let's see if you can even make it into Thistles and Thorns sect. The girl looked at Xiaoyu with contempt. She lifted her head proudly and said arrogantly, I'm already a level 2 martial artist and an expert has agreed to take me as her disciple. Alright, Yenner. After you become a martial artist, you've got to be aware of your identity. A middle-aged man beside the girl glanced at Xiaoyu as he spoke to his daughter. I understand, father. I'm not an ordinary woman from here on. The girl nodded proudly, lifted her head high and ignored Xiaoyu. Xiaoyu pouted and said angrily, who said I can't enter the Thistles and Thorns sect? My master is an elder. What? The girl beside her was slightly shocked and looked at Xiaoyu. Your master is an elder. Xiao Yu didn't want to entertain her. She grabbed Wang Xian's arm with both of her hands and put on an expression that seemed to suggest that she did not want to entertain her. Wang Xian patted Xiao Yu's head. This girl looked just like a young girl from a small family most of the time, but she did have times when she was very competitive. With regard to Xiao Yu's decision to join the Thistles and Thorns sect, Wang Xian had no objections and allowed her to do as she wished. With Wang Xian's current strength, it would be easy for him to find her a better sect or get her an art of cultivation to cultivate. However, he did not do so. Since it was similar, even if she cultivated in other places, it would be fine as long as his sister was happy. Lies. Seeing Xiao Yu chose to ignore her, the girl beside Xiao Yu grumbled. Wang Xian glanced at that girl and his lips curved up slightly. The elders of Thistles and Thorns sect are coming. At this moment, a voice pierced the atmosphere. Wang Xian looked over and saw the higher management of Thistles and Thorns sect walking over. There were a total of 7 people and they wore a common uniform with a logo in the shape of a thorn at the chest area. At the forefront of the group was an old lady. Xiao Yu's master, Elder Fong, was amongst the group too. The old man in the middle is the vice sect leader of Thistles and Thorns sect, Old Lei. Ordinary matters of the sect were all handled by Old Lei. The elders are here. The one beside Old Lei is Zhao Qingshan, an elder of the Zhao family. Some people who were familiar with the higher management of Thistles and Thorns sect commented softly. As the 7 of them approached, the entire training field also quietened down. Everyone looked respectfully towards the 7 higher management members of the Thistles and Thorns sect. Time's up, those who aren't here don't have to come. Vice sect leader Lei of the Thistles and Thorns sect looked at the crowd before speaking to another elder beside her. Yes, vice sect leader Lei. Everyone is present. Let's start with their assessment. The other elder nodded his head, looked at the crowd and announced, the assessment of the Thistles and Thorns sect would begin soon. Please get ready. Those who pass our assessment will become a member of the Thistles and Thorns sect in the future, while failures will have to leave. Now, come forward one by one. The elder nodded his head in satisfaction as he saw everyone listening quietly and attentively. He signaled to a young man near him. The young man nodded his head, brought a book with him and walked towards the transparent hexagon crystal. Come forward for the assessment when I call out your name. The young man looked at the crowd and shouted, Zhang Xing, Peng Zhou. Here, a juvenile answered anxiously. Come up, the young man looked at the juvenile and instructed. Yes, yes. The juvenile walked to the young man and looked at him anxiously. Place your hands on the assessment crystal, the young man said to the juvenile. The juvenile nodded his head and placed his hands on the crystal. A magical thing happened. To his surprise, a black and blurry human figure appeared within the crystal. When the young man saw it, he shook his head. Fail, you can go back. Ha! That juvenile was shocked. With a disappointed look, he lowered his head as he walked back. What just happened? How did he fail? How does this assessment work? How do they determine success or failure? Below the platform, the crowd looked on with doubts. This is an assessment crystal. You can just see it as a piece of unique assessment equipment. When you place your hands on the crystal, dark spots will appear in the crystal. The greater the number of dark spots, the poorer one's talents are. Below the platform, a middle-aged man from where the Song family was standing explained to the crowd. That's right. Anyone who touches the assessment crystal will cause the crystal to be tainted. The level of pollution determines one's talents. The greater the black spots, the poorer one's talents are. If an image of a black man appeared, it would mean that the person has 0 cultivation talents. The young man nodded his head and explained to the crowd. The crowd nodded their heads slightly. The juveniles who were here for the assessment looked anxiously at the assessment crystal. Next, Lu Yun. Another juvenile walked forward. When he placed his hands on the crystal, a black man figure appeared. The juvenile was embarrassed. Fail, next. Fail, next. After 4 consecutive juveniles failing, the remaining crowd got nervous. It's so hard to get into Thistles and Thorns sect and become a martial artist. Next, Ziener. Tisk, I'll definitely pass. Beside Wang Xian and Xiaoyu, that juvenile girl with a ponytail lifted her head, walked forward confidently and placed her hands on the crystal. Some black spots appeared on the crystal gradually. However, the black spots were clearly much lesser than the previous 4 candidates. When the young man saw the black spots in the crystals, he smiled and announced, "Middle-class talents, pass." Ziener lifted her head proudly and walked down the platform. That juvenile girl actually passed. She's really lucky. Middle-class talents are considered to be really great talents for cultivation. The crowd sighed emotionally and looked at the juvenile girl in envy. The higher management members of Thistles and Thorns sect also revealed faint smiles while watching from above. Middle-class talents could be considered as great. When Ziener walked past Xiaoyu, she lifted her head proudly and sneered. Xiaoyu pouted. Next. The assessment carried on. There was a total of 40+ juveniles and the assessment was carried out at a quick pace. Approximately 1 out of 5 or 6 would pass. Moreover, most of them only had ordinary talents. Next, Song Aowen. When reading out this name, the young man raised his voice and looked to where the Song family was with a radiant smile. Junior brother, you are still taking the assessment? With your strength, it's a done deal that you can enter our Thistles and Thorns sect, the young man said to the approaching Song Aowen with the intention of getting on his good books. I have not assessed my own talents previously. Therefore, I would like to give it a try. Song Aowen smiled radiantly and nodded his head as he walked up to the platform. Elder Song, your grandson is really talented to reach martial artist level 4 at such a young age. I'm afraid even our disciples aren't as talented. Where the higher management members stood, a middle-aged elder spoke to Elder Song. He's still fine. Elder Song smiled. Although he might have sounded humble, his face was filled with pride. Elder Song's grandson's talents are at least middle class. In fact, he might even be better. Vice sect leader smiled and commented. At least middle class and might be even better. Congratulations, Elder Song, the remaining members congratulated. Let's take a look. Let's take a look. Elder Song said with smiles. On the platform, Song Aowen walked towards the assessment crystal confidently and placed his hands on it. Tiny black spots appeared. They were few, even fewer than Ziener. The young man was shocked and exclaimed, "High-class talents! High-class talents!" Upon hearing the exclamations of the young man, Song Aowen smiled proudly. Not too far off from what I expected. Junior brother Song, you might be able to reach the heights of Elder Song or even higher in the future, the young man said with envy. Great! Seeing his grandson's performance, Elder Song revealed a proud look. Congratulations, congratulations! Beside him, the other elders congratulated Elder Song. Elder Song waved his hand and remarked, I had not expected this from my grandson either. We are really lucky to recruit a disciple of high-class talents this year, Vice Sect Leader Lei commented joyously. Didn't Junior Sister Fong recruit a new disciple? This is Junior Sister Fong's first disciple. I believe her talents should be exceptional too. Among the 7 people, there were only 2 female members. Suddenly, the middle-aged lady looked to Elder Fong and asked this jokingly. What? Are you thinking of snatching my disciple away again? Elder Fong asked coldly, glancing emotionlessly at the middle-aged woman. Junior Sister Fong, you are reading too much into it. My disciple also has high-class talents. She isn't much inferior to Elder Song's disciple. Why would I snatch your disciples? The middle-aged woman said nonchalantly. TSK. Would the disciple I found last month run over to you suddenly for no reason? Elder Fong replied coldly. That's her own decision. New things wouldn't come if the old things aren't gone. Perhaps this disciple of yours would have top-class talents. Hee hee. The middle-aged man mocked and embarrassed Elder Fong. Alright, let's carry on. Seeing the two female elders quarreling, Vice Sect Leader Lei waved his hands helplessly and interrupted. Chapter 14, 7, Shiver in Fear, 2. Elder Fong and Elder Zhou shared a huge conflict all the time. A month ago, Elder Fong had found a talented disciple, but Elder Zhou snatched that disciple away. Everyone knew about this, but none of them said anything. After all, that disciple had the final right to choose Elder Zhou. Elder Fong could only suffer her loss in silence. The middle-aged woman, Elder Zhou, cast a glance at Elder Fong as she straightened her body on the chair and continued looking at the field. Next, Wang Yu. One by one, the young girls and boys went up to the stage. When the youthful voice was heard again, Xiao Yu threw a nervous look at Wang Xian. Go on. Wang Xian said to Xiao Yu with a smiling face. Okay. Xiao Yu nodded as she walked perturbingly towards the assessment crystal. She's the one you brought? Vice Sect Leader Lei asked Elder Fong on the stage when he saw Xiao Yu walking up the stage. Yes. Elder Fong nodded. She's not bad. Is she better than Qiu Yun? Elder Zhou, who was next to her, said with a smile. Elder Fong frowned and kept her silence. Several elders around them shook their heads at this. High-class talents were 1 in a million. How could it be easy for Elder Fong to seek another one again? To practice the ancient martial art, it's not only about being a talent, but also depends on the personal efforts and understanding. Vice Sect Leader Lei consoled her. That's true. Hee hee. Elder Zhou chuckled in agreement, but her tone was full of sarcasm. Elder Fong remained calm and fixed her gaze on Xiao Yu. She knew that Xiao Yu was a talent, but she was still far from the disciple which she'd found a month ago. I just asked for her to be someone of good character, unlike the previous one. Elder Fong had coldness flashing in her eyes as she thought to herself. Ha, I want to see what kind of talent you are. Zi Yenner, next to Wang Xian, glared at Xiao Yu with a smirk. Only that juvenile from the Song family was better than you. The rest are not as good as you. Hee hee, the middle-aged man beside her said to his daughter as he watched the training ground with a prideful face. Place your hand on the crystal. On seeing Xiao Yu on stage, the young man instructed her. Okay. Xiao Yu nodded as she placed her hand slowly. Everyone's attention was fixed on Xiao Yu. She's quite pretty. Song Aowen from the Song family commented smilingly when he saw Xiao Yu. Hee hee, you've grown up. Song Aowen's father patted his shoulder and said, if you like her, go ahead and woo her. You are old enough. Hee hee. Song Aowen giggled and observed Xiao Yu from head to toe. Xiao Yu placed her palm onto the crystal. 1 second. 2 seconds. 3 seconds. Her. No reaction. All the people were stunned as they stared at the crystal with surprise. The crystal had no reaction at all. It was as though it was not activated. The young man standing at the side watched in surprise. Why is there no reaction from the crystal at all? What's the matter? The higher management members on the platform knit their eyebrows. Could the assessment crystal break down? An elder raised the question. Impossible. The assessment crystal can never break down, an elder rebuked immediately. Elder Fong knit her eyebrows. She darted out and landed beside Xiao Yu. After careful examination, Xiao Yu's palm was touching the assessment crystal firmly. Master, this doesn't seem to be responding. Xiao Yu looked at the crystal under her hand with confusion. She was at a loss. Lift your hands. Elder Fong said with a frown. Okay. Xiao Yu nodded and raised her hand. Elder Fong stretched her hand out, and a tinge of black color appeared in the crystal. She raised her eyebrow before she grabbed Xiao Yu's hand and placed it on the assessment crystal again. What's the matter? Vice sect leader Lei stood up on the platform and asked doubtfully. Is she a jinx or what? Elder Zhou said wickedly. All of the people were watching curiously as they wondered what was happening. Elder Fong had mixed expression when the assessment crystal was not responding to Xiao Yu's touch. She hesitated before she placed her hand on Xiao Yu with flickering eyes. Immediately, a stream of internal energy passed through Xiao Yu's hand and went towards the assessment crystal. With a soft sound heard, the assessment crystal seemed to be activated as it was giving off a luster glow. The glow continued to be incandescent under the moonlight. This, Elder Fong narrowed her pupils with a trembling body. She stared at the glowing assessment crystal with disbelief. She could not believe it even now. Even when the crystal was glowing, she still felt like it was a dream. This is... Suddenly, the vice sect leader Lei's eyes were agape. He could not help but exclaim with a shaking body as he looked at the glowing assessment crystal. His roar was so loud that some average people found it unbearable. Flawless and pure, inborn constitution. Elder Zhou stood up immediately as she repeated the words with a shaken and nasty look. Flawless and pure, inborn constitution. All the elders stood up too. One by one, they darted out and showed up in front of Xiao Yu. What's the matter? Why are the higher management members of the Thistles and Thorns sect so excited? That young girl can make the assessment crystal give out a white luster glow. What's going on actually? Judging from the look of the higher management members, it seems like that girl is a tremendous talent. What does pure and flawless mean? On seeing the excitement of the higher management members, everyone was puzzled as they discussed. Xiao Yu, you actually have an inborn constitution. An inborn constitution. But I checked on you. You! Elder Fong could not believe it as she grabbed Xiao Yu on her shoulder and spoke with excitement. Master, I have no idea either. Xiao Yu was lost as she looked at her master. Seeing all the elders and vice sect leaders beside her, she turned back to peer at Wang Xian timidly. Little girl, let Grandpa check your body. The vice sect leader Lei stretched out his hand to Xiao Yu with a shaking voice. Xiao Yu was puzzled as she looked back at vice sect leader Lei. Did he call himself Grandpa? Xiao Yu stretched out her hand. With a pair of trembling hands, vice sect leader Lei did not look like a vice sect leader now. All the surrounding elders stared hard at them with heavy breaths. Vice sect leader Lei placed his hand gently on Xiao Yu's hand as though he was afraid he might hurt her. He closed his eyes, and a gentle stream of internal energy flowed into Xiao Yu's body. The energy went through her 8 extraordinary meridians slowly. Vice sect leader Lei's body was shaking as tears of excitement slowly ran down his cheeks. Fuck! It's really the inborn constitution. Chapter 148, Saintess, 1. Ha ha ha, ha ha ha. Suddenly, vice sect leader Lei laughed raucously. Without any premonition, his laughter resounded within the entire training field. His laughter was just like that of a maniac or retarded person. However, vice sect leader Lei wasn't bothered. Heaven is blessing our Thistles and Thorns sect. Heaven is blessing our Thistles and Thorns sect. Vice sect leader Lei roared out in agitation. She really is. Inborn constitution. The surrounding elders' eyes popped open and they were thrilled. Inborn constitution. Inborn constitution. They knew clearly what this would mean. This would mean that within 5 years, Thistles and Thorns sect would have an inborn expert as they advanced and became a first-class sect. They would also become the strongest existence in the southern province. For the entire Thistles and Thorns sect, this was a blessing from the heavens. One could easily say that they were favored by the heavens. What just happened? Why would vice sect leader Lei be so agitated? That juvenile girl must have some incredible talents. Otherwise, vice sect leader Lei wouldn't lose his composure. Inborn constitution. Could it be a horrifyingly strong existence? The surrounding crowd was dumbfounded to see the maniac vice sect leader Lei and agitated elders. Inborn constitution. Where the Song family was, they understood ancient martial arts a lot more than ordinary people because of Elder Song. When they heard those words, everyone was shocked. Song Owen sank into a daze as he looked at the juvenile girl on the platform as though he was retarded. As compared to the inborn constitution, his high-class talents could be considered as trash. Inborn constitution really exists in the world. A few members of the Song family were still in a daze. Inborn constitution had been circulated as part of mythology. It had been a few hundred years since there was a human with inborn constitution. Master, is inborn constitution incredible? Seeing the thrilled looks of the elders and the vice sect leader, Xiaoyu asked her master this curiously. Inborn constitution. Xiaoyu, you might not know what this truly means. Elder Fong helped to comb Xiaoyu's hair as she explained, this would mean that you could reach the inborn realm quickly and become an expert stronger than even your master and our sect leader. So incredible. Xiaoyu's eyes popped open and her mouth opened slightly in awe. We can't let others know about the inborn constitution. At this moment, Vice Sect Leader Lei turned solemn. He knew that he had been too agitated a while ago and had not controlled his emotions. As a result, everyone knew about it. We can't let other sects know about this. Otherwise, we would attract lots of trouble. Elder Song also added solemnly. Vice Sect Leader Lei put on a stern face, turned around, looked at the crowd and announced, those who wish to join our Thistles and Thorns sect today will be enrolled. Besides this, with regard to the inborn constitution, everyone has to forget about it and not mention it to others. Otherwise, kill. Vice Sect Leader Lei's stern voice reached the ears of everyone and everyone could sense the killing intent within it. The surrounding crowd was shocked. As for those juveniles who had been eliminated in the assessment, they were thrilled. Thistles and Thorns sect had allowed them to join because of her. It's all because of that girl, that Thistles and Thorns sect enrolled everyone. Some people felt it was unreal in thinking that the Thistles and Thorns sect would be wasting their resources to groom those without talents because of this juvenile girl. However, the families of these juveniles knew why Thistles and Thorns sect would do so. It was to silence them and prevent them from leaking information about inborn constitution. Now that their kids had joined Thistles and Thorns sect, they would enjoy both the fame or obscurity that would come with it in the future. Once Thistles and Thorns sect got into trouble, their kids would too. Besides that, Thistles and Thorns sect probably had another intention in mind. That was if you dared to leak anything, your kid would be dead. Although the actions of Thistles and Thorns sect had the intention of threats, no one was opposed to it. Instead, they were thrilled. They did not know how incredible inborn constitution was, but they did hear Vice Sect Leader Lei commenting that the heavens were blessing Thistles and Thorns sect. Inborn constitution must be an incredibly horrifying existence to make the Vice Sect Leader of Thistles and Thorns sect lose his composure. Thistles and Thorns sect would likely get stronger and stronger in the future. In that case, their kids would also do better in the future. Thank you, Vice Sect Leader Lei. We don't know anything that happened tonight. Even if others are to place a knife by our necks, we would not speak a word about today. That's right. We would die before we said anything about what happened today. Members of each family gave their promises one after another regarding not speaking of what had happened. Great, great. Vice Sect Leader Lei nodded his head in satisfaction. He turned to the other elder and instructed, inform the sect leader right away and ask him to get here as soon as possible. Yes. That elder nodded his head immediately. Under normal circumstances, they naturally wouldn't request the sect leader to come over immediately. However, the sect leader had to rush over immediately this time. Vice Sect Leader Lei stared at Xiaoyu intensely before heaving out a long sigh. With a friendly smile, she asked, is your name Xiaoyu? Our sect leader will be here in a while. We will be letting the sect leader guide your cultivation in the future. Our sect leader is a half-step to inborn expert and we would provide you with the best resources. What do you think? Seeing how Vice Sect Leader Lei reacted, Xiaoyu pulled back. She felt a little like a big gray wolf asking a little rabbit to open the door. Elder Fong wasn't looking pleased. She knew what vice sect leader Lei meant by asking Xiao Yu to go under the wing of the sect leader and providing her with the best resources. Although she wasn't comfortable, she did not speak a word. Xiao Yu had an inborn constitution after all. If Xiao Yu announced she had an inborn constitution, even the sacred sects would fight over her. She's not qualified to become the master of Xiao Yu. Master! Xiao Yu lifted her head and pulled Elder Fong's arm. Elder Fong had a bitter look. Xiao Yu, I'm not qualified to become your master. Let our sect leader guide you. Master, I have already seen you as my master. Moreover, it is you who brought me here. My brother also agrees to you being my master. Xiao Yu looked at Elder Fong and said. Xiao Yu, your master would be our sect leader. He's the strongest in our sect. Elder Fong is not qualified to guide you. Elder Zhou glanced at Elder Fong in envy before saying this to Xiao Yu with a smile. She called Xiao Yu a jinx previously but didn't dare to do so now. Instead, she couldn't wait to get on the good books of this future inborn expert. Xiao Yu looked at her master, feeling indecisive. She had already taken Elder Fong as her master from the bottom of her heart. However, Elder Fong had also wanted the sect leader to guide her. This made her feel a little indecisive. The crowd below the platform saw what had happened and almost fainted. What the? Vice sect leader wants the sect leader to be your master and yet you are hesitating? How infuriating. Chapter 149, Saintess, 2. She will continue to have Elder Fong as her teacher. Seeing Xiao Yu growing flustered, Wang Xian slowly stepped forward from the audience. He knew about the Thistles and Thorns sect. The sect leader was a 90-year-old man. When he thought about Xiao Yu becoming the disciple of an old man, he preferred Elder Fong to him. Besides, as Xiao Yu progressed with her cultivation, the sect leader would still be able to guide her. Moreover, Wang Xian would be around too. Who are you? This is not something you can poke your nose in. Humph. Upon hearing Wang Xian's comment, Elder Zhou frowned and shouted at him. Brother. Xiao Yu spun around and called him as soon as she heard his voice. Her? Is he your brother? The Elder Zhou was stunned, and her expression quickly changed. She observed Wang Xian from head to toe. I wasn't expecting you to be Xiao Yu's brother. Not bad. Do you want to join the Thistles and Thorns sect too? How about this? I'll take you as my disciple and groom you. Wang Xian was speechless as he looked at the middle-aged woman. What a fence-sitter. He is. At that point in time, a young man had stepped out suddenly and declared that he was Xiao Yu's brother. All eyes were on him. Those who wished to join the Thistles and Thorns sect were all people from Pengzhou and Rivertown. Among those were ancient martial artists from Rivertown who did not join any sects, and they were not from any families as their strength was not strong enough. They were considered rogue cultivators. Some of the rogue cultivators wanted their sons or grandchildren to join the Thistles and Thorns sect for a better cultivation environment. At the same time, they could get themselves a strong backing. Hence, they brought their offspring here. Wang Xian had been hiding in the crowd, and hence, no one recognized him. But when he walked out, those who came from Rivertown recognized him immediately. He is here. Those rogue cultivators from Rivertown were struck by terror. Whatever happened that night was still vivid to them. That young man led the dragon sect and trampled the Yen family. Since then, that terrifying inborn expert had cursed every one of them. Whenever anyone wanted to talk about what happened that night, that person would die an immediate death. A terrifying curse. However, they did not mind about the curse as they had participated in that incident as well. They did it to ensure that no one would ever leak out the truth. She's the younger sister of the Dragon King. No wonder she has the inborn constitution, those rogue cultivators from Rivertown thought to themselves. They walked towards Wang Xian, ignoring all the strange looks cast on them. Greetings to the Dragon King. Dozens of middle-aged old men brought their children over to Wang Xian respectfully and greeted him. The one over here is the real king. What is Thistles and Thorns sect to him? Isn't he the miracle Dr. Wang? Not only were those rogue cultivators from Rivertown stunned, but those wealthy people who had some connections were also stunned when they saw Wang Xian. They might not know what had happened to the Yen family, but they knew the miracle doctor of Rivertown, Miracle Dr. Wang. It was said that Miracle Dr. Wang had the ultimate skills in Rivertown, and that even old Qin and the Qin family had to treat him politely. Besides, there were those affluent people who attended the Qin family's dinner that night too. Hence, they did not hesitate at all when they saw the rogue cultivators go up to him and greet him. Miracle Dr. Wang. Another dozen people came to Wang Xian and greeted him with humility too. This had caused the people from Thistles and Thorns sect and Pengzhou to be dumbfounded. What's with those from Rivertown? Why are they so respectful to that young man? Dragon King. Miracle Dr. Wang. What a title. Those who are here are somewhat capable people. Yet, they are so respectful to that young man. Who is he? What sort of background does he have? Wang Xian looked at those people from the Rivertown, nodded his head slightly and waved them off. The rogue cultivators and the rich did utter a word and returned to their original spots. Gosh! This! What did it feel like when some courtiers were paying their respects to their king? Unbelievable, unbelievable. All the Pengzhou people were taken aback as they wondered how formidable this young man was, making these people back off with just a gesture. The higher management of the Thistles and Thorns sect were staring at Wang Xian with disbelief too. Even Vice Sect leader Lei showed a doubtful look in his eyes. Elder Song, I asked you to check on the information from Rivertown. Vice Sect leader Lei, I remember. It's him. So it's him. Elder Song suddenly interrupted Vice Sect leader Lei as he continued with a shocked face. According to the info that we got, there was a mysterious young man known as Miracle Dr. Wang in Rivertown. He defeated Fang Huazi, who was ranked 18th in the domestic miracle doctor's chart easily with his medical skills. At the same time, he crippled Fang Huazi's arms. Also, we found out that all the ancient martial artist families in Rivertown share a close relationship with this young man. When we wanted to dig deeper, we couldn't find any further information. Now he operates a medical hall in Rivertown. He charges a high consultation fee and is known as the Crazy Doctor. In Rivertown, it is said that he can treat all illnesses. Elder Song swept a glance at Wang Xian with radiance flickering in his eyes as he spoke with some shock. Miracle Dr. Wang in the Rivertown? I've heard of him. He defeated the Sacred Followers Guild, which goes to show that he is formidable, another elder said with a solemn face. Xiao Yu was among them as she listened to their remarks about her brother. Her lips were slightly parted, as she did not expect her brother would be so powerful. A miracle doctor is equivalent to a sect. Vice Sect leader Lei said slowly, and everyone was struck with complex thoughts. Indeed. A miracle doctor is equivalent to a sect. Those miracle doctors on the miracle doctor's chart would have a strong network. They could even get a half-step to inborn martial artist over if they asked for it. The inborn experts could even owe those better doctors a considerable favor. With the strength that could defeat Fang Huazi from the Sacred Followers Guild, and also being ranked 18th on the miracle doctor chart, this was good enough for the Thistles and Thorns sect to be wary of. I did not expect Xiao Yu's brother was such a famous person. Radiance flickered in Elder Fang's eyes. The disciple whom she'd discovered accidentally had a more profound and more terrifying background. Xiao Yu's brother is Miracle Dr. Wang. I'm sorry that I didn't recognize you. Vice Sect leader Lei had a change in his expression. He cupped his fist at Wang Xian and spoke politely. It's fate. Wang Xian smiled. I did not expect Elder Fang to take in my sister as her disciple all of a sudden. You should know that Xiao Yu has the inborn constitution. Vice Sect leader Lei said hesitantly. Of course, I know. I thought she could begin her cultivation at a later stage. But since she's happy about it, I'll just let her be. Wang Xian nodded his head. Besides, I also learned about Thistles and Thorns sect. You have some good reviews. Vice sect leader Lei and the rest of the elders felt uncomfortable about what Wang Xian had said. Obviously, Wang Xian had checked on the Thistles and Thorns sect. However, they got over it very soon. After all, his sister had joined a sect out of the blue. As her brother, it was natural for him to find out more. If they thought further, having Xiao Yu with such a powerful brother would be extremely beneficial to the Thistles and Thorns sect. Chapter 150, Saintess, 3. In the future, not only did Thistles and Thorns sect have a disciple with inborn constitution, but it had also gained the friendship of a powerful miracle doctor. At the thought of this, Vice sect leader Lei exchanged glances with the elder group. It was clear that they couldn't hide their excitement. For the Thistles and Thorns sect, today was their lucky day. Just as Vice sect leader Lei had shouted previously, the heavens were blessing the Thistles and Thorns sect. Does Miracle Dr. Wang have any opinion on the master of Xiaoyu? Our intention will be to let our sect leader guide Xiaoyu personally. After all, our sect leader is a half-step to inborn expert. Vice sect leader Lei lowered his stance as he asked Wang Xian once again. Let's stick with Elder Fang. When Xiaoyu enters the ancient martial arts circle, I will also help her out in cultivation, Wang Xian replied. Alright. In that case, let's go with what Miracle Dr. Wang suggested. Vice sect leader Lei nodded his head. Xiaoyu smiled, looked at her master and said, Master, I think that's better too. It's you who brought me here while my brother has been hiding these things from me, Xiaoyu added, and it was clear that she was still upset with Wang Xian. This made Wang Xian smile bitterly. I was thinking of letting you enjoy your university life. TSK. Xiaoyu rolled her eyes at him before breaking into laughter. Elder Fang was a little moved. Her previous disciple only had high-class talents but was easily tempted and poached by other people. Now that her current disciple had inborn constitution, she wouldn't agree to letting the sect leader be her master, and chose her instead. She was glad to have a disciple like her. Different from Elder Fang, the surrounding elders looked extremely displeased. Lei Quan, where's the disciple with inborn constitution? At this moment, an agitated voice pierced the atmosphere. Following which, an old man with a head of white hair rushed over at a horrifying pace. Half-step to inborn couldn't walk in the skies yet. Only by reaching the inborn realm could one levitate in the air for short periods. Sect leader. The elder group and disciples immediately bowed. Vice sect leader Lei immediately walked to the old man and repeated the sequence of events. Great, great. The sect leader of Thistles and Thorns sect was thrilled as he looked at Xiaoyu. After which, he turned to Wang Xian and greeted Wang Xian with his right fist clasped in his left palm. Miracle Dr. Wang, I have long heard of you. Sect leader Tang, greetings. Wang Xian exchanged customary words. Miracle Dr. Wang, are you really letting Xiaoyu join our Thistles and Thorns sect? With Xiaoyu's gift and your ability, it would be easy for you to get her into a sacred sect. Sect leader Tang asked Wang Xian calmly. Since fate brought us here, let's just go with it. It doesn't matter if it is a first-class sect or sacred sect, Wang Xian replied nonchalantly. In that case, Xiaoyu will be a member of the Thistles and Thorns sect from here onwards. Since Xiaoyu still insisted to let Elder Fang be her master, I'm fine with it. I could find time to guide her in her training in the future too. Sect leader Tang laughed loudly. His face was rosy and he was also very agitated. He hesitated for a moment before making the decision. Members of Thistles and Thorns sect, listen. Here. All the disciples, including the elders and vice sect leader Lei, all bowed down. Those juveniles who had not joined Thistles and Thorns sect also followed and lowered their bodies. From today onwards, our Thistles and Thorns sect will have a saintess position. Xiaoyu will be the saintess of the Thistles and Thorns sect. Her status will be equal to vice sect leader Lei. No one is allowed to go against the words of the saintess. Otherwise, he would be punished according to our sect rules. When the saintess reaches the inborn realm and leads our Thistles and Thorns sect forward, she will take over the role as the sect leader. Sect leader Tang announced to the crowd. Everyone was shocked but no one objected. One who had the inborn constitution could easily reach the inborn realm with cultivation. On that day, she would be able to lead Thistles and Thorns sect to join the ranks of first-class sects. Even if she was made the saintess, no one would object to it. Upon hearing the announcement of the sect leader, Xiao Yu was stunned and shocked. Wang Xian stood aside and smiled. Even with Xiao Yu's constitution, he was a little surprised that Xiao Yu was designated as the saintess and the future successor of the sect leader. The only question would be if Xiao Yu was willing to take up the role of the sect leader. However, it would be fine even if she wasn't willing. In the worst scenario, Wang Xian could help to raise an inborn expert. Disregarding others, it would be easy for him to create another inborn constitution. Wang Xian was equivalent to a bug-like existence for the ancient martial arts circle. However, it would be difficult for him to raise someone above the realm of inborn. Greetings, Saintess. An elder went down on one knee in front of Xiao Yu and greeted with respect. The surrounding elders, excluding Xiao Yu's master, Elder Fong, also went down on one knee. The rest of the disciples of Thistles and Thorns sect had also gone down on one knee as they greeted the saintess. Prostration was only done when Xiao Yu assumed the role. Under normal circumstances, even ordinary disciples wouldn't have to execute such prostration. After all, modern-era thinking was also affecting the ancient martial arts circle. You guys. Get up quickly. Seeing everyone paying such high respect to her, Xiao Yu blushed and spoke quickly. Below the stage, Zi Yener was shivering slightly and her eyes were filled with fear. She lifted her head and saw the girl she'd been mocking a while ago. She couldn't help but regret her action. Will she expel me? Or? Zi Yener was filled with horror and fear and did not move an inch while kneeling down. When everyone got up, she didn't even notice. Where the Song family was, Song Awen also lowered his head. He recalled his arrogant remark previously that this girl was pretty. If he dared to say this at this moment, disregarding others, his grandfather would kill him. You're just a piece of trash. She's way out of your league. All newly enrolled disciples gather in front. Vice sect leader Lei nodded his head in approval and said to the group of juveniles in front of him. The group of juveniles immediately rushed forward and stood upright. Vice sect leader Lei looked across and his attention eventually landed on Zi Yener. Seeing Vice sect leader Lei staring at her, Zi Yener's expression turned as white as a sheet. Are you Zi Yener? Your talents are still commendable. From here on out, you shall follow behind the saintess and are in charge of her living needs. Vice sect leader Lei announced. She's so lucky to be able to stay close to the future inborn expert. She could follow the saintess around. What a lucky girl. The juveniles looked at Zi Yener with envy. Upon hearing the words of Vice sect leader Lei, Zi Yener's expression turned even paler. Her legs went wobbly and she almost fell to the ground. With a little crying tone, she answered, yes. When Vice sect leader Lei saw her, he thought she was just a little agitated and wasn't too concerned. Xiao Yu looked at that girl and revealed a smile. However, she wasn't intending to be calculative with her. Chapter 151, Home. Brother, if sect leader Tang wants me to inherit the Thistles and Thorns sect as the sect leader after 4 or 5 years, do you think I should do it? Do whatever you like. Just letting your vice sect leader handle the sect's affairs will do. Didn't sect leader Tang do that to vice sect leader Lei? Since vice sect leader Lei and sect leader Tang will assist you, you shouldn't have much to worry about. But I'll be just 23 or 24 then. Am I not too young? I'm afraid they will not listen to me. In the ancient martial arts world, people respect those who are highly skilled. Since you possess strength at such a young age, people will be respectful to you. But, if you don't want to be the sect leader, you can just say no. Wang Xian and Xiao Yu laughed as they walked towards the car park area near the Thistles and Thorns sect. They walked as they exchanged conversation after midnight. On hearing the last answer from her brother, Xiao Yu was displeased and she pouted. But I want to become the sect leader. I want to uphold the righteous and help the weak, leading the Thistles and Thorns sect to become the strongest sect. Then, I'll be the renowned Xiao Yu, a female god of war and warrior of the ancient martial art world. Hee hee. As she spoke, she seemed to be imagining herself to be the next sect leader, leading the Thistles and Thorns sect and becoming a female god of war. Wang Xian chuckled. Well, if you want to be a female god of war, you must work hard. If you want to cultivate, I have ways to speed up your process in attaining Inborn Realm. Really, brother? Xiao Yu asked, brightening up her eyes. Yes, within half a year. Half a year is good enough for you to attain the Inborn Realm. Wang Xian smiled as he spoke to Xiao Yu. For Dragonians, Wang Xian could help them to attain the Inborn Realm within 100 days even if they were average people. But Xiao Yu did not have the divine dragon bloodline. For her to achieve the Inborn Realm, half a year would be good enough. Half a year? Xiao Yu parted her lips slightly. Then she nodded her head with a resolute look on her face. Wang Xian beamed as he looked at the motivated Xiao Yu. Let's go home the day after tomorrow, said Wang Xian to Xiao Yu. Okay, Sister Li's wedding is on October 3rd. Uncle Zhang is having a wedding banquet. Xiao Yu said with a smile. After they sat in the car, the middle-aged driver started the engine and drove them home. We're fortunate this time. With the rise of the Thistles and Thorns sect, it will be more advantageous to us. That girl is quite a daunting talent. A saintess. You must respect her when you see that girl in the future. Yes, father. Thanks to her, you can get into the Thistles and Thorns sect this time. Practice hard on your cultivation. Saintess's brother is somebody. He could even talk to sect leader Tang, a half-step to Inborn expert, on an equal status. You must find a way to befriend the saintess. She's the future sect leader of the Thistles and Thorns sect. When the saintess and her brother went into the car, those middle-aged and old men reminded their children since they were following behind Wang Xian and Xiao Yu from about 10 meters away. The Song family was among them too. They cast their respectful and fearful gazes on the young man and girl who went into the car. Your grandfather wants us to please the saintess since she will be the leader of Thistles and Thorns sect in the future. Also, it would be best if we could curry favor with her brother too. An old man looked around the family members and spoke slowly. The saintess's brother, Miracle Dr. Wang. Song Aowen frowned. That young man was only older than him by a few years. In the beginning, Song Aowen had been a genius. But now, a girl appeared and surpassed him immediately. He was already feeling uncomfortable with it. If he was asked to please the saintess, he had nothing to say. But he did not have to please the young man. Your grandfather is in charge of the information department of the Thistles and Thorns sect. According to the information he got, he thinks that the saintess's brother is even more daunting than the saintess. Remember how the rogue cultivators and the rich from Rivertown were acting tonight? Song Aowen froze and frowned. Your grandfather suspected that her brother does not only possess formidable medical skills, but also has mighty strength. Of course, all these things were speculation. But whatever we saw was already good enough to give him our respect, the old man continued. Song Aowen slightly hesitated before he nodded his head. Grandfather, I know what to do. The old man nodded slowly. When Wang Xian and Xiao Yu reached Xiao Yu, it was almost 1 a.m. The dormitory was locked. So they had to sleep in separate rooms in the hotel. In such a situation, Wang Xian wondered if he should get a house. As soon as the thought was planted, he could not control it from growing. If he had a house near the sea, he would not have to stay in the dormitory anymore. Besides, he rarely went to school nowadays. Staying in the dormitory was inconvenient to him. If he lived near the sea, he could go directly as and when he wanted to. Moreover, it was inconvenient to date Guan Shuqing if he stayed in the dormitory. If he got a house outside, ha ha ha. Wang Xian burst out with kinky laughter as he thought about it. After all, he was already 20 years old. Sometimes, his underwear got wet during his sleep. Heh heh. A Seaview house in Rivertown would cost over 10 million. But he could afford to get one now. It was one day before the National Day holiday, and it also marked the last day of the military training. During the last night of military training, the school held an orientation night. The programs were quite good, but Wang Xian and Xiao Yu were not in the mood for it. Xiao Yu had started her cultivation ever since she obtained the art of cultivation. Wang Xian was speechless upon seeing her overdone way of cultivating. On the first day of the holiday, Xiao Yu drove Guan Shuqing home before they headed back to their home. Their hometown was next to Lake Xianfeng at Feng Lake County, in Pengzhou City. The county was small with lovely scenery. When the pink Bentley drove into the county, it drew a lot of surprise from many people. Such a luxury car almost did not exist in the county. The car drove to the northern part of the county near Lake Xianfeng, which was surrounded by paddy fields. About 70 to 80 residents were residing on one stretch of the paddy fields. As it was far away from the city center, this area was also much of the countryside. The road was smooth with poplar trees planted by the residents on both sides. Each poplar tree was more than 10 meters in height. During summer, those aunties and uncles who had nothing to do loved to gather under the shade for mahjong or chit-chatting sessions. Looking around at the surroundings, Wang Xian felt a sense of belonging. What a beautiful car! When the pink Bentley was driving down the road, the surrounding people under the shade were staring at it with shock. This B logo. Is that a Bentley? Oh right, I heard their cars cost a few million each. Wow, a few million. We can buy a few houses in the city center of this county. It's a dead end in front. I wonder who their relatives are. Who has such rich relatives? As everyone looked doubtfully at the car under the shade, the car stopped in front of the single-story house. A young man and a young girl stepped out of the car. Chapter 152, In Return. That is. Aren't they the siblings, Wang Xian and Wang Yu? Yeah, it's really them. How can this be possible? They even had trouble gathering the school fees previously. How can they afford to drive such a good car now? Although these siblings are poor, they are pretty good in studies and have qualified for the first-tier university. Did they engage in illegal dealings? Otherwise, how can they afford such a good car? I believe they borrowed it from others. The people of the current era were no longer as pure and honest. They had a serious mentality comparing with others. Comparing their cars, comparing the results of their kids and comparing the conditions of the family. Wang Xian and Wang Yu's family was the poorest among the 70 to 80 families in this area. When their grandmother was still alive, she couldn't do much because of her old age. They were barely able to make ends meet by doing some farming and receiving aid from their neighbor, Uncle Zhang. When the people tried to educate their kids, they always liked to use Wang Xian and Wang Yu as examples. Look at you. Take a look at Wang Xian and Wang Yu. Their results are so good even though they barely get enough food. What about you? You get to eat well and live in a comfortable environment and yet your results are so bad. Although they were complimenting Wang Xian and Wang Yu for doing well in their studies, they were also commenting on their family background. They were really poor. When Wang Xian heard the exclamations and doubts from his neighbor, he wasn't bothered. Among the surrounding 70 to 80 families, only Uncle Zhang had been kind to them from the bottom of his heart. As for the other families, Wang Xian didn't want to comment. He could still remember the incident when his neighbor, who had a relatively good relationship with them, hired Xiao Yu to give tutoring to their daughter. After giving tutoring for over a month, they only gave Xiao Yu $300. Each session lasted 3 to 4 hours and she was giving their daughter tutoring every day. Yet, they only paid her $300. This left him speechless and helpless at those moments. They knew clearly that Wang Xian's family wasn't doing well and took advantage of them. This made Wang Xian and Xiao Yu disappointed. However, They were both young at that time and didn't speak up about it. Since then, he finally got a clear view of the kind of people they were. Wang Xian took out the key and opened the door. It was a small house and it didn't have many things in it. Other than a simple sofa and a few stools, the left and right rooms were Xiao Yu's and his bedroom respectively. As Xiao Yu had cleaned the place before he went to Rivertown for her studies, the house wasn't very dirty. Take out the presents. Let's go to Uncle Zhang's house. Wang Xian said to Xiao Yu as he walked to the back of the car and took out some gifts. Wang Xian had personally bought these gifts. Uncle Zhang liked to drink tea and therefore Wang Xian bought him some tea leaves. Pu'er tea leaves from the 1980s. Each caddy would cost $120,000 and Wang Xian bought 2 boxes for Uncle Zhang. 5 sticks of premium cigarettes from Huang Helu and Supreme Ruler, which cost $18,000 in total. Uncle Zhang didn't drink and therefore Wang Xian did not buy alcohol for him. He also bought Aunt Zhang some cosmetics and accessories which cost a bomb too. As for Sister Li, he bought her a watch that cost over 100,000. Let's go. Wang Xian carried the gifts and said to Xiao Yu. Alright, brother. The two of them headed out of their house. However, when they reached the door, they saw 3 housewives, a middle-aged man and an old man walking towards their house. Ah! Xiao Xian, Xiao Yu. Did you guys strike the lottery? The crowd at the door looked over inquisitively. They noticed the gifts in Wang Xian's hands and asked their question curiously. We did make some money. Seeing that they were their neighbors and seniors, Wang Xian smiled and nodded his head. Where are you guys going? Seeing Wang Xian carrying the gifts, the middle-aged man smiled and asked. We are going to Uncle Zhang's house. We got him some gifts. Wang Xian said plainly before continuing. We'll be going over now. Ah, what are you carrying? Huang Helu. Supreme Ruler. Pu'er tea. That middle-aged man was surprised by the gifts in Wang Xian's hands. Just some small tokens, Wang Xian said plainly before heading to a nearby house with Xiao Yu. What's Huang Helu? What's Supreme Ruler? The housewife standing by the side asked the middle-aged man inquisitively. Cigarettes. The middle-aged man's eyes were still fixed on Wang Xian's gifts. His eyes were full of shock. How valuable could cigarettes be? The group of housewives sneered. 1 stick costs approximately $1,800. He had 10 sticks with him and so those are close to $20,000. The middle-aged man lit a cigarette from the cigarette pack that cost $10 as he spoke. $1,800 for a stick? So expensive? Oh my gosh. Can it be that the Wang siblings have really gotten rich? Let's go take a look. The crowd followed behind curiously as they headed towards Uncle Zhang's house. When Wang Xian and Xiao Yu arrived at the doorstep, a Land Rover, which cost approximately $2 to $3 million, drove out from Uncle Zhang's house. Wang Xian was taken aback. Through the car window, he could see that it was a young man who was driving the car. Uncle Zhang and his family did not send him off and this made Wang Xian a little suspicious. Have the wedding matters been settled? Who knows? Xiao Li is marrying into a rich family but this might not be a good thing after all. That's true. I heard that she's getting married only because she is pregnant. Hee. Yeah. I heard rumors that the groom's family wasn't agreeable to this wedding. Comments from the housewives sounded from behind Wang Xian and Xiao Yu. Wang Xian frowned. After seeing that the Land Rover had driven off, he walked through the main door. Once he was in the yard, he could see Uncle Zhang and his family sitting in the living room. Uncle Zhang was smoking and was clearly not looking pleased. Uncle Zhang! Wang Xian shouted. Uncle Zhang was taken aback. When he saw Wang Xian and Xiao Yu, he immediately extinguished the cigarette in his hand and revealed a smile. Wang Xian and Xiao Yu, you guys are finally on break. Uncle Zhang had taken great care of Wang Xian and this might be because he did not have a son. Yeah, we got back once the school break started. We bought you some gifts too. Wang Xian replied and walked towards the house. Why did you even bring gifts over? Are you rich now? Take them away, take them away. Seeing Wang Xian carrying bags of gifts with him, he reprimanded Wang Xian fiercely. Hee, I really am a little rich now. Wang Xian chuckled as he walked in and placed the gifts on the table. He had been to Uncle Zhang's house for meals frequently. Therefore, both Wang Xian and Xiao Yu were familiar with the place. Why did you go to the expense of buying gifts? Just make sure you guys can take care of yourself. Aunt Zhang stood up and grumbled. Take them away, take them away. Wang Xian felt warmth from their actions. He smiled and replied, we have already bought them and can't get a refund on these. You kids. Old Zhang, take a look at what Xiao Xian got for you. Xiao Xian and Xiao Yu came in a luxury car just a while ago. That car is worth at least several million. Behind them, the neighbor who followed Wang Xian toward Uncle Zhang's family commented curiously. Luxury car? Uncle Zhang was stunned. He then looked at the gifts in the bags. 10 sticks of cigarettes. These were the kind that he had never smoked before. In addition, there were 2 boxes of tea leaves which were his favorites. Huang Helu, Supreme Leader, and 8582 brand pu'er tea leaves. Sister Li, who had been standing by the table, suddenly revealed a surprised look after taking a look at the gifts. I heard that Huang Helu and Supreme Ruler both cost $1,800 a stick. My box of cigarettes only cost me slightly over $100. A single stick is enough for me to get 10 boxes of cigarettes. A middle-aged man commented with envy. So expensive? Uncle Zhang was shocked. Dad, these cigarettes are cheap in comparison. 8582 pu'er tea leaves are the really expensive ones. A box will cost at least a few $100,000, Sister Li commented. What? Chapter 153, The Wedding. All of them stared at the 2 boxes of tea leaves in shock. Zhang Yuanli was taken by surprise too. She'd found herself a rich boyfriend. As such, she understood some of these things. She and her boyfriend had once bought a box of pu'er tea leaves from the 1980s for an elder. However, she never expected this brother would gift 2 boxes of such tea leaves to her father. It cost more than $200,000. It's just some tea leaves. Since Uncle Zhang loves to drink tea, I had to buy him some good ones. Looking at his surprised look, Wang Xian chuckled. No amount of money could measure the bonds they shared. Aunt Zhang, Sister Li, we bought you some presents too. Xiao Yu, at the side, beamed as she took out Aunt Zhang's jewelry and Sister Li's watch. This. Zhang Yuanli was taken aback when Xiao Yu passed her the Vacheron Constantine watch and the platinum jewelry to her mother. All these things cost at least $200,000, said Zhang Yuanli in shock as she looked at Xiao Yu and Wang Xian. $200,000? And these things, didn't they cost around $500,000? Uncle Zhang was stunned. His expression was slightly different than before. Xiao Xian, did you do something bad? Where on earth did you get the money to buy all these things? I'm telling you, we cannot do anything that breaks the law, said Uncle Zhang. The rest of the people around them were staring at Wang Xian with doubts and suspicions. How can a student have the money to buy such expensive gifts? Not to mention, they were from the poor Wang siblings. Uncle Zhang, when I was in college, I earned some money by chance with my own restaurant and a hospital in Rivertown. Now, I'm still quite loaded, Wang Xian explained ambiguously. When you go to Rivertown next time, I can bring you guys to check out my restaurant. Restaurant? Hospital? Uncle Zhang felt relaxed when he heard what Wang Xian said. That's good. But the things you bought were too expensive. It's okay. Wang Xian shook his head. It's not much. Don't worry, Uncle Zhang. I'm rich enough to buy these things. Oh well, you've grown up in the blink of an eye. You became more capable. That's very good. Uncle Zhang patted him on the shoulder with consolation. He is rich now. The surrounding neighbors stared at Wang Xian with a surprised look. They were jealous when they saw the gifts that Wang Xian sent to Uncle Zhang and his family. Almost 500,000 worth of gifts, yet Wang Xian gave it readily to Uncle Zhang, and they might receive more in the future. I didn't expect Xiao Xian to be earning big bucks now. That's incredible. He's a boss at such a young age. I thought so too. Xiao Xian is so clever. He will become somebody in the future. It's happening now. Xiao Xian is awesome at such a young age. He might become a millionaire in the future. Xiao Xian, don't forget us in the future. The surrounding crowd praised Wang Xian with faces full of smiles as they curried favor. Wang Xian smiled and nodded but did not utter a word. Everyone felt embarrassed. Xiao Xian and Xiao Yu, have you had your lunch? It's almost noon. I'll make your lunch now. Aunt Zhang stood up at this time as she asked them. Not yet. Thanks, Aunt Zhang. Don't stand on ceremony with me. You just arrived, right? Take a seat and chat with Uncle Zhang. Uncle Zhang opened up the cigarette packaging and distributed a box to each of the neighbors. He spoke with them for a while before they finally left. Shaoli, brew the tea for your brother and me. Uncle Zhang took out the tea leaves happily. Sure, Dad. Xiao Xian, since you're doing well, I feel at ease now. From now on, don't buy these things for me anymore, said Uncle Zhang to Wang Xian smilingly. Okay. Wang Xian chuckled and asked with doubts, Oh, Uncle. Who drove out just now when I was here? Your future brother-in-law. Uncle Zhang was obviously unhappy when he said this. Sigh, let's not talk about this. Xiao Xian, how's school? Uncle Zhang changed the topic, and Wang Xian did not continue to ask. Instead, he chatted with Uncle Zhang about other things. Uncle Zhang, since Sister Li is getting married, aren't you busy now? After lunch, Wang Xian saw Uncle Zhang sipping his tea relaxingly, and he raised his question. Nothing to be busy about. Since the banquet is managed by the hotel, it's much more manageable than before, Uncle Zhang answered. Oh, Uncle Zhang. Where's your fishing rod? Let's go fishing if you have nothing going on later. Lake Xianfeng was quite renowned in the entire southern province. The entire lake spanned 30 to 40 kilometers, and the deepest area of the lake was more than 10 meters deep. Uncle Zhang even undertook an area at the Lake Xianfeng to rear fish. Wang Xian had loved to fish since he was young. The fish that he caught mostly turned into food on the table. Fishing? We can't fish anymore. This year, weird things have happened to Lake Xianfeng. Not a single fish could be found in it. Those fish that I reared in the fish pond this year were all gone. It's very odd. All the families which reared fish incurred quite a loss. When Uncle Zhang talked about the fish, he frowned immediately. The fish were gone in all of Lake Xianfeng? Wang Xian's curiosity was piqued. Yes, it was bizarre. This even went on the news, and someone was sent to investigate. But there isn't any conclusion to date. I reared more than 10,000 catties of fish, but now it's all gone. Uncle Zhang shook his head and sighed. Oh? Wang Xian was even more doubtful. Wang Xian and Xiao Yu returned to their home from Uncle Zhang's place after 2 p.m. After they came back home, Xiao Yu smiled and asked Wang Xian, Brother, do you know who Sister Li is marrying? Not sure. Uncle Zhang looks like he didn't want to talk about this, so I didn't ask much. She's marrying someone from Rivertown. A rich second generation. I heard Sister Li say that his family is rich. Really? But why did Uncle Zhang seem reluctant about this? Asked Wang Xian curiously. Brother, Sister Li told me that her future husband has some family issues. What issues? Wang Xian looked curiously at Xiao Yu. Sister Li's husband came from a wealthy family. His family disagreed with this marriage in the beginning. But Sister Li's husband loves her so much that they got a baby. That is why they had no choice but to agree. Moreover, Sister Li told me that her husband's parents were going to arrange a joint marriage with an equally wealthy family. Hence, even though they agreed to the marriage, they were not happy at all. Simply said, they are looking down on Sister Li's family. Humph. What snobs. This time, Uncle Zhang was angry about the bride's car. Uncle Zhang's original plan was to get the groom to fetch the bride from here since it is only a 2-hour car ride from Rivertown. The atmosphere would be far more lively, and Uncle Zhang and his family would look good. Yet the other party's parents turned this idea down because it was too troublesome. They wanted to ask Sister Li to set off from a hotel in Rivertown. The man was a weakling too. He dared not defy what his father said. What was more infuriating was that Sister Li is getting married, but the guy did not help her at all. He said he was busy with his own family work. Don't you feel angry too? Chapter 154, Venomous Sea Snake. Note, the venomous sea snake within this chapter refers to a type of snake often found in historical Chinese culture that has the ability to evolve into a dragon. Xiao Yu grumbled as she explained to Wang Xian. After learning the causes and effects, Wang Xian also frowned. No matter how one looked at this, the groom's actions weren't right. A wedding should be a joyous event. Since they had decided to get married, they should complete the wedding joyously. Now that it had turned out this way, it was only natural that Uncle Zhang wasn't pleased. Perhaps the groom's family is trying to show they are infuriated by doing so. What an egocentric family. Sister Li's boyfriend isn't helping the situation. He doesn't have a backbone, Xiao Yu grumbled and felt indignance for Sister Li. Wang Xian frowned and commented, "Forget it. It's not appropriate for us to speak on this. Let's just follow Uncle Zhang's decision." Since this was relating to Sister Li's wedding, it wasn't appropriate for Wang Xian to comment on it. "Xiao Xian, Xiao Yu. Are you guys there? Can it be that these kids have gone to bed?" At this moment, a foreign voice sounded from outside their home. The voice seemed to be from a neighbor of theirs. "Sleep," Wang Xian said softly to Xiao Yu before walking towards his room. Xiao Yu also stuck out her tongue playfully as she headed for her room. They had seen the true colors of these people and there wasn't a point to keep in contact with them. When one got rich, others would claim to be your relative even if you stayed deep in the mountains. On the contrary, when one was poor, no one would show concern for you even if you lived in a lively city. That's the way things were. Can it be that these kids aren't at home? Their car is still here. Where else could they go? I guess they have gone to bed. Some people commented at the doorstep. Seeing that they weren't getting a response from within the house, they shook their heads helplessly as they turned back. In this small area with 70 to 80 families, the news of the Wang siblings getting rich had spread within a few hours. They drove a luxury car that cost several million and even gave old Zhang's family gifts that cost $400,000 to $500,000. This made many people jealous. And they had come over to get on the good books of the Wang siblings in hopes of getting some benefits. You guys don't even take a second look at them and weren't willing to help them with the simplest thing in the past. Now, you guys are trying to curry favor from them? These kids aren't silly. Just a short distance away, Uncle Zhang sat at the entrance of his house. He shook his head in contempt as he saw the group of people. Only by treating others with sincerity would you be returned with sincerity. Wang Xian took an hour nap in the afternoon. He took out his phone to play after getting bored. If it wasn't because of Sister Li's wedding, Wang Xian wasn't thinking of returning during the National Day holidays. Other than Uncle Zhang's family, there wasn't anything that he felt sentimental about in this place. After having dinner at Uncle Zhang's place, he returned to his home. Xiao Yu continued with her cultivation enthusiastically. One could easily tell the advancements she was making as she had the inborn constitution. Xiao Yu got a little addicted to the feeling of getting stronger quickly. 8 p.m. The sky had turned dark. In places like the village, there wasn't anyone walking around at 8 p.m. Around the village, faint moonlight shone on the hazy world. "I'll go take a look." Xiao Yu was practicing her cultivation. Wang Xian was bored from having nothing to do. Recalling his conversation with Uncle Zhang in the afternoon, he got up and headed out. Lake Xianfeng was just 300 to 400 meters from his house. The lake was so huge that one could not see the end of it. This was a naturally formed lake. The villagers had occupied the area near the shores to rear fish. As for the deeper waters, there was a rule that limited fishing to 5 days a year. During these 5 days, Lake Xianfeng would be extremely lively. Even people from nearby cities might come over for fishing. Although it couldn't be compared to other large-sized lakes in the country, Lake Xianfeng was still rather famous. Wang Xian arrived at the lake and saw the glittering water under the moonlight. He removed his underwear and jumped right into the lake. Based on Uncle Zhang's account, the fish in Lake Xianfeng had mysteriously disappeared. This was definitely not common. Perhaps this is caused by some animals or even ancient martial artists. Let's take a closer look. Wang Xian thought to himself before jumping in and swimming deeper into the lake. As he dived into the lake, he gradually changed into a 5 to 6 meters long 5-colored divine dragon. The water near the edges was shallow. Wang Xian swayed his dragon tail as he swam rapidly towards the center of the lake. His current speed was incredibly fast. In just 5 minutes, he had swum 7 to 8 kilometers. The depth was over 10 meters and the bottom of the lake was just mud. Indeed, there aren't many fish in the surroundings. Wang Xian looked around in shock. Due to restrictions on fishing in Lake Xianfeng, there should be a lot of fish. Whenever the fishing season arrived, the people had been able to catch over 100,000 tons of fish easily. Yet, there were barely any fish left at this moment. Wang Xian observed the surroundings carefully as he moved within the lake. Nope. He covered the surrounding with his dragon power but couldn't sense any abnormality in the surrounding. He looked across and hesitated for a moment before swimming in the east direction. After swimming 4 to 5 kilometers, Wang Xian found that the bottom of the entire lake was abnormally ordinary. However, it was also because it was so ordinary that it was a little creepy. Wang Xian felt like he was in a no-man's land while staying under the water. There wasn't anyone around and the surroundings were serene and cold. This place. Wang Xian observed his front direction. This place was even more desolate than the center of the lake. There wasn't even any animal in the surroundings. Not even 1 or 2 small fish. And at the bottom of the lake in front of Wang Xian, it was abnormally pitch dark. He swam over and realized that it was a strange species of seagrass. Black seagrass. Wang Xian was surprised and grabbed it with his dragon claw. SSS. Wang Xian felt a corroding sensation on his dragon claw and was instantly shocked. These seagrasses were poisonous. Looking ahead, he noted that the areas covered by the seagrasses weren't small. It spanned approximately 2,000 meters in radius. He swam slowly above the seagrass and looked down at this strange region. That is. Wang Xian squinted his eyes and looked at the middle of the grass. At that place, there were 9 caves. As to how deep these caves were, Wang Xian couldn't sense it. Nonetheless, the entrance of each cave was at least 1 meter in width. What's inside must be what's responsible for the disappearance of all the fish within Lake Xianfeng. Wang Xian swam slowly above the cave entrance as he focused on the cave. Growl! The cave was extremely deep. Based on his senses, it should be over 10 meters deep and he couldn't see what was in there. He let out a light roar that carried the dragon power towards the cave. SSS. At this moment, a sound that resembled a poisonous snake hissing propagated across. There were 9 caves and 9 pairs of black eyes were staring at him. Their black tongues had the shape of a triangle. This was a species of snake. What really surprised Wang Xian was that where their heads were, there were bulging buns. The 9 snakes only revealed their heads and stared coldly at Wang Xian. These are. Seeing the snakes that extended from 9 caves, a thought came to his mind. Venomous sea snake, level 10. Extractable dragon energy, 235,432. Possess wind divine dragon's bloodline. Venomous sea snake. An animal that possesses the bloodline of the divine dragon. Wang Xian looked at the 9 venomous sea snakes in shock. Extractable dragon energy from them was even higher than roving heavens. They must be horrifyingly strong. Suddenly, he recalled the animal in ancient Chinese culture. A venomous sea snake evolved into a serpent in 500 years. A serpent evolved into a dragon in 1,000 years. A dragon evolved into a horned dragon in 500 years and into a winged dragon in 1,000 years. Winged dragons had wings and were commonly known as the wind dragon. This animal was in existence that had the bloodline of the divine dragon. Looking at their bulging heads, they must be evolving into serpents soon.